good evening, and welcome. And if you feel like it, you might leave a comment telling us how many nights you have fallen asleep to these gentle stories, for it is always lovely to know that you are there. Let the day fall away behind you now, and let yourself grow still. In a moment, we will set out together on a long and gentle walk through a whole world of magical creatures, and there is nowhere you need to be but here, soft and warm and slowly growing sleepy. If these long, gentle tales bring you rest, you may wish to subscribe, so more of them can quietly find you on the nights to come. Tonight, we are diving into the complete bestiary of the wizarding world, the whole wide company of magical creatures that fill the story of Harry Potter. From the fire-blooded dragons that sleep in the mountains to the small, shining, loving Nifflers that burrow underfoot. Over the next 20 chapters we will wander, without hurry, through this great and living menagerie, pausing gently beside one or two creatures at a time. We will meet the proud Hippogriff and the quiet Thestrals that only the grieving can see. We will pass the Basilisk sleeping far beneath the school, and the great spiders of the forbidden forest, and the cold and hooded Dementors that we will speak of softly, so that they cannot trouble your rest. We will visit the loyal house elves, the gold-keeping goblins, the star-reading centaurs, and the merpeople in their stone village beneath the black water. There will be werewolves and the turning moon, unicorns silver in the moonlit clearings, phoenixes rising gently from their own ashes, and the last of the giants far away in the mountains. There will be Boggarts that wear the shape of fear, and then melt into something to smile at, and there will be many smaller wonders too. Pixies and bowtruckles and the odd bright beasts of a traveler's enchanted case. None of it asks anything of you. You do not need to remember a single name. You do not need to follow every thread. Let the telling move like a slow walk through a quiet wood at dusk, each creature stepping softly out of the shadows to be seen for a little while, and then wandering gently back into the trees. So settle in now. Let your shoulders soften, let your breathing slow and deepen, and let the warm dark of the room close kindly around you. There is nothing here to startle you, only a long, slow, and kindly telling. Let it carry you, gently, all the way down into sleep. Let us begin where the fire began, far back at the very root of the wizarding world, with the oldest and grandest of all its creatures, the dragons. Long before castles rose from the hills, long before the first wand was ever carved, the dragons were already here, sleeping in the high cold mountains and the deep hollow places of the earth, breathing slow and warm in the dark. They are the great living memory of magic, the fire that was burning before anyone thought to give it a name. And to speak of them now, softly and from a safe and comfortable distance, is to lay the very first stone of our long and gentle walk together. Picture, if you like, the sheer size of such a creature, the scaled bulk of it filling a cavern, the way a slow tide fills a bay. A dragon is built of ridged and armored plates, each scale overlapping the next like the tiles of some ancient roof, and its hide is so tough and so deeply enchanted that ordinary spells slide harmlessly away from it, and even the strongest curses struggle to find a way through. There is a story that only the eyes are truly soft, that all the rest is a wall of living stone. And so wizards who study these beasts learn to move with great care and greater patience, never rushing, never startling, only watching from far off as the huge sides rise and fall with each enormous breath. And then, of course, there is the fire, drawn up from somewhere deep within, a long roll of flame that pours out into the night like a river turned to light. Yet even the fire, told of here in the warm dark of your quiet room, becomes something almost soothing, a distant hearth glowing on a far mountainside, no nearer to you than a star. Over the long years, a handful of the dragon breeds have stepped, one by one, out of the shadows of the story and into the light where we might see them for a little while. There is the Norwegian Ridgeback, born from a dark and leathery egg, small and clumsy at first, the way all young things are, with a ridge of soft spines running down its little spine and eyes far too large for its face. One such creature was raised, for a short and secret while, by the gentle giant of a groundskeeper who loved him. And though the small dragon grew far too quickly and far too fiercely to stay, that early tenderness is worth remembering, and we will return to it before we let this chapter rest. There is the Hungarian horntail, most fearsome of them all. Black-scaled and bronze-horned, and lashing a spiked and dangerous tail, the very dragon a young champion once had to face in the first task of a great tournament. Though tonight, we simply watch it curl protectively around its clutch of eggs, guarding what it loves the way any mother would. There is the common Welsh green, quieter than most, blending into the soft rolling hills of its homeland so gently that a traveler might pass close by and never know. Its voice a low musical roar, and its fire a narrow, tidy jet. There is the Swedish short snout, a lovely silvery blue that gleams like a cold morning, breathing a flame so pure and so hot it burns clear and bright, prized and admired even by those who keep their distance. There is the Chinese fireball, sometimes called the lion dragon, scarlet and smooth-scaled, with a golden fringe of spikes framing its blunt face, sending up its fire in great blooming mushrooms of flame. And far, far below the surface of the world, in the deepest and most guarded of the underground vaults of the great Goblin Bank, there is a dragon of a different and sadder sort, pale and half-blind from its long life in the dark, chained and kept as a living guard over the oldest gold, so accustomed to a certain warning sound that it flinches from it even now. We will pass that quiet pale creature again later in our travels, when we go down into the deep stone corridors of the bank, but for tonight, let it rest in its dark, breathing slow, dreaming perhaps of a sky it has not seen in 100 years. Consider, for a little while, how these great creatures live when no one is watching them at all, when there is no champion to face and no vault to guard and no student peering nervously over a fence. They keep to the wildest and loneliest places of the world, the high crags and the deep glens and the far cold reaches where few people ever come, and there they hunt and doze and tend their eggs and rear their young in a solitude as old as the mountains themselves. A dragon will lie for hours in the pale sun, wings half spread to gather the warmth, its huge eyes lidded, doing nothing at all but breathing and basking. And there is a great slow peace in a creature so powerful, choosing simply to rest. The mothers among them are fierce beyond telling in defense of their clutches, and yet they are astonishingly tender with the eggs themselves, turning them gently, warming them with careful breath, waiting through long patient weeks for the first small cracking of a shell. To imagine that, the most fearsome beast in the world bent low and patient over a nest, softening its terrible fire to a mere gentle warmth for the sake of the little ones not yet hatched, is to understand something about dragons that their fearsome reputation never tells. For all their danger, the dragons have long been woven into the everyday craft of magic, and here the story softens into something almost domestic. Their blood, it is said, has near to a dozen uses, from cleaning to healing to the quiet work of ovens, discovered and set down by a wizard whose name is honored to this day. And deep within a dragon lies the heartstring, a single shining cord of pure and powerful magic, which the finest wand makers draw out with the greatest of care and lay along the core of a wand. A wand cord with dragon heartstring is a wand of power and of loyalty, quick to learn and quick to bond, carrying within it a thread of that most ancient fire, so that a small child holding such a wand in a warm and lamplit shop holds, without ever knowing it, a whisper of the mountain and the flame. There is something gentle in that thought, that the oldest and fiercest of creatures should give, in the end, the very heart of itself to the small, careful work of learning magic, passing its fire down into hands that will never need to fear it. And so we come back, as promised, to the tenderness at the center of all of this, to the great and gentle giant who could look upon the most fearsome beast in the world and see, before anything else, a creature that needed caring for. Where others saw only teeth and flame and danger, he saw a hungry hatchling breaking free of its shell, a small trembling thing to be warmed and fed and worried over, and he loved it wholly and without fear, even knowing it could never truly be kept. That love asks us to see the dragons, on this first quiet night of our journey, not as monsters at all, but as one more part of the vast and living family of magical creatures, wondrous and worthy of care, each with its own place in the wide world and its own slow heartbeat in the dark. So let the dragons settle now. Let the great scaled sides rise and fall, slower and slower, as the fires bank down to a soft and glowing warmth deep within the mountains, far away on those high cold peaks, under a sky thick with stars. The oldest creatures of the wizarding world are folding their wings and lowering their heavy heads, letting the long day of the world go quiet around them. There is nothing here to trouble you, only the distant, gentle glow of an ancient fire on a faraway hill, warm and safe and endlessly far from your soft and resting room. Let your own breathing slow to match theirs, in and out, unhurried and deep, and let the warm dark gather kindly around you as the great dragons of the mountains breathe down and gently down into sleep. From the fire of the mountains we walk down now into gentler country, into a paddock at the edge of a great forest, where the grass is long and the light is soft. And there we meet a creature of enormous dignity, the hippogriff. Half of it is eagle, and half of it is horse, and somehow the two halves make not a strange thing, but a beautiful one. A creature that seems to belong to both the sky and the good solid earth at once. The front is all bird, a fierce and noble head with a curved, cruel-looking beak that is nonetheless gentle when it chooses to be, and great feathered wings, folded like the pages of some enormous book, and strong taloned forelegs that grip the ground. The back is all horse, a smooth, muscled body and a long, switching tail and hooves that stamp softly in the grass. And where the feathers give way to hide there is a place so lovely that you might gaze at it for a long while. The point where two worlds meet in a single living thing. A hippogriff is proud, and its pride is not vanity, but something older and finer, a deep sense of its own worth that must be honored before anything else can happen between you. These are creatures easily wounded in their dignity, quick to feel a slight, slow to forgive a rudeness, and so there is an ancient courtesy that must always be observed by anyone who would come near. You must first make eye contact, holding the great amber gaze without blinking and without looking away, letting the creature read your heart in your steady eyes. Then you must bow, slowly and low, bending from the waist and holding the bow, offering your respect plainly and without pretense. And this is the part that asks the most of a person. You must wait. You must simply wait, still and patient, to see whether the hippogriff will honor you in return. If it judges you worthy, it will bend its own front legs and lower its proud head and bow back to you. And only then may you come close. Only then may you touch the smooth feathers of its neck. Only then are you welcome. There was a lesson, once, in the great forest school, where the gentle giant of a groundskeeper brought his students out to the paddock to meet these creatures for the very first time, and taught them this old courtesy of eye and bow and patient waiting. Most of the young ones hung back, uncertain, for the hippogriffs are large and their beaks are sharp, but one boy stepped forward when he was asked, and stood before the greatest of them, a magnificent gray creature with a proud and watchful eye. The boy held the gaze and bowed and waited, hardly daring to breathe, and for a long moment nothing happened at all. And then the great gray hippogriff, slowly and with immense dignity, folded its scaled forelegs and bent its head and bowed back, accepting him, and the whole paddock seemed to let out its breath at once. The boy was allowed to stroke the creature's beak, and then, wonder of wonders, to climb upon its back, and the great wings opened wide and beat down hard, and they rose together into the air and swept out over the smooth, dark water of the lake, the boy clinging on and laughing without a sound, the creature strong and sure beneath him, the two of them small against the wide evening sky. It was a gentle beginning of a long friendship, and gentleness, as we shall see, was always this creature's truest nature. For that same proud gray hippogriff came, not long after, to a hard and undeserved sorrow. Through no fault of his own, through the wounded temper of a careless boy, and the cruelty of a court that would not listen, he was wrongly blamed and wrongly sentenced, condemned for a crime that was really no crime at all. It seemed for a while that nothing could save him, and the gentle giant who cared for him grieved as though for a member of his own family. But there are quiet rescues in the world as well as loud injustices, and on the very night the sentence was to fall, the great gray creature was slipped away, unbound and freed, spirited off into the night before any harm could reach him. And though those who loved him could hardly believe their good fortune, he was safe. It was a rescue made without a single blow struck, only cleverness and courage and love. And the hippogriff, patient and trusting, allowed himself to be led away into a new and hidden life. And what a life it became! In the years that followed, that same proud creature was given a new name, a soft and fitting one that spoke of his silvered feathers, and he became a quiet guardian, keeping watch in a hidden place over a hunted man, and, later still, sharing the shelter of an old and gloomy house in the heart of the city, tucked away upstairs, tended and fed and loved. He had been condemned and freed, and he had become a protector, folding his great wings in dim and dusty rooms and watching over those who needed watching over, asking for nothing but the respect that was his due. There is something deeply reassuring in that long arc of his life, that a creature so nearly lost to unfairness should end his days safe and honored, quietly guarding the people who had once guarded him. It is worth pausing, too, over the simple daily life of these creatures, the parts of their nature that have nothing to do with courts or rescues or great deeds at all. Hippogriffs nest upon the ground in wild and rocky places, and they lay a single great egg, fragile and pale, which both parents tend with the same fierce devotion they show in everything they do. The young hatch downy and clumsy, all oversized beak and unsteady legs, and they learn to fly within a matter of days, tumbling and beating their new wings until the air begins at last to hold them. They hunt small creatures and dig for insects and grubs with their strong talons, and they are happiest, on the whole, when left to their own proud company in the quiet of the open country. There is nothing grasping in them, and nothing cruel, only that deep and abiding sense of their own dignity, and a memory that is long and faithful, so that a hippogriff will remember for years the person who honored it and the person who did it wrong. To earn the friendship of such a creature is to earn something lasting, a loyalty that does not fade with the seasons. And those few who have flown upon a hippogriff's back speak ever after of the steady power beneath them and the wide calm of the sky. For that, in the end, is the whole heart of the hippogriff, and it is a lesson worth carrying gently into sleep. Here is a creature of great power, able to tear or to trample, able to carry a rider up into the clouds, and yet all it truly asks of the world is to be treated with respect. Meet it with rudeness or carelessness, and it will draw back, offended and proud. But meet it with courtesy, with a steady eye and a low, slow bow, and the patience to wait and see, and it will bow in return and give you its trust. And its trust, once given, is deep and loyal and true. There is a quiet wisdom in that. A reminder that dignity offered is so often dignity returned, and that the fiercest seeming creatures may only be waiting to be honored. So let the paddock grow dim now, and the long grass still, and let the great gray hippogriff fold his silvered wings and settle down upon the soft earth for the night. His proud head lowers, his amber eye half closes, and his breathing slows into the deep and even rhythm of rest. There is no lesson left to learn, no bow left to make, only the quiet of a creature at peace with the world and at peace with those it loves. Let his stillness become your stillness, and his slow, warm breathing become your own, in and gently out, as the evening deepens around you both. There is nowhere to go and nothing to do, only to rest, honored and safe, as the proud and gentle hippogriff drifts, wing over folded wing, down into the soft dark of sleep. Now let us walk a little deeper, to the edge of the forest, where the shadows gather early and the air grows cool and still. And there let us meet a creature that many fear and few understand, the Thestrals. They are horses, in the way that dreams are sometimes horses, but they are not horses like any you have known in the fields of the waking world. They are winged, with great leathery wings that fold along their sides like the wings of some vast and gentle bat. And their bodies are skeletal and dark, the black hide drawn close over the bones, so that you can trace the shape of every rib and every long, slender limb. Their faces are dragonish and strange, and their eyes are wide and white and shining, and when they move it is with a slow and boneless grace, a patient drifting quiet that is more like the passage of smoke than the gallop of a horse. They are, to look upon, an unsettling sight, and yet everything about their true nature is the opposite of frightening, for these are among the gentlest and most patient creatures in all the wide bestiary of the wizarding world. The strangest thing about the Thestrals, and the thing that has given them their sad reputation, is that not everyone can see them. To most people they are simply invisible, and the great winged bodies move unseen through the dusk, so that a whole herd might pass close by and stir not a single startled glance. Only those who have seen death, who have watched a life end and have truly understood what they were seeing, can perceive the Thestrals at all. It is grief, in the end, that opens the eyes to them. Grief and the slow understanding that comes after. And so a person may live for many years never seeing one, and then, after a loss, look up one gray morning and find the creatures suddenly there, drifting quietly at the forest's edge, patient and dark and real. Because they became visible so often in the wake of sorrow, people came long ago to think of them as omens of ill fortune, as bringers of bad luck and heralds of worse to come. But this is a misunderstanding, one of the oldest and saddest in the world, for the Thestrals bring nothing. They are only there, patient and loyal and calm. And it is not the creature that is unlucky, but only the grieving eye that has been newly opened to it. At the great forest school there is a whole herd of Thestrals, the only truly domesticated herd known anywhere, kept and cared for in the deep woods and grown tame enough to be trusted with the ordinary work of the place. It is they, in fact, who draw the carriages that carry the students up the long winding road to the castle at the start of each term, though most of the young ones, never having seen death, believe the carriages to be pulling themselves, rolling along by some ordinary school enchantment. Only a few can see the great dark shapes straining patiently in the traces. And to those few the Thestrals are simply a part of the landscape of home, no more frightening than the owls in the tower or the fish in the lake. The creatures are fed and watched over, and they in turn are steady and dependable, coming when they are called, standing quiet to be harnessed, doing their patient work without complaint, asking for nothing but a little raw meat and a kind and unhurried hand. There was a girl at that school, dreamy and gentle and unafraid of anything the world called strange, who loved the Thestrals with a calm and simple fondness that troubled no one and asked for no explanation. She had seen death, and so she could see the creatures plainly, and rather than fearing them, she went to them, feeding them by hand at the forest's edge, speaking of them without a shred of dread, seeing in their leathery hides and shining eyes nothing but a misunderstood gentleness that matched something in her own quiet heart. When a great need came, one dark and desperate night, and a small band of friends had to travel far and fast to reach the distant city, it was she who led them to the Thestrals, and it was the Thestrals who carried them, patient and sure through the cold night air, bearing even those riders who could not see them and had to climb trembling onto the backs of what felt, to their hands, like empty air. The creatures flew steady and true through the dark, asking nothing, judging nothing, only carrying their frightened passengers safely where they needed to go. And there is something deeply tender in that image of the misunderstood and dreaded creature turning out, in the hour of need, to be the most reliable friend of all. There is more to their gentle nature than their patient work with the carriages and their long flight through the night. Thestrals live together in close and loyal herds, and among themselves they are calm and affectionate creatures, grazing quietly through the deep woods, tending their young, keeping to the shadows where their dark hides melt into the trees. Their sense of direction is faultless, so that a Thestral asked to carry a rider to some far and unfamiliar place will find its way there true and sure through the darkest night and the thickest cloud, needing no map and no landmark, only the name of the place held gently in mind. They are drawn to the scent of blood, which has done little to soften their grim reputation, and yet this is only the simple appetite of a creature that must eat, and it takes nothing from their deep and patient kindness. A Thestral will stand for a long while to be stroked by a hand it trusts, its strange head lowered, its leathery wings folded and still, and there is in that quiet closeness a tenderness that anyone who has known one will remember. Even the foals are gentle, wobbling on their thin dark legs at the edge of the herd, learning the slow drifting grace that will one day carry them silently through the sky. And so the Thestrals leave us with a gentle thought to hold as the evening deepens, a quiet meditation on the strange doorway of grief. It is a hard thing to see a Thestral, for it means you have known a loss and have sat with it long enough to understand. And yet the creature waiting on the other side of that hard seeing is not a monster at all, but a patient and loyal companion, dark and calm and endlessly kind. What seemed, from a distance and to a fearful eye, like an omen of dread turns out, once truly looked upon, to be only quiet, only stillness, only a gentle creature standing patiently in the cool of the trees, wishing you no harm and offering, if you will take it, a steady way through the dark. There is a comfort in that beyond almost any other, the discovery that the frightening thing, met closely and with an open heart, is so often simply the quiet thing, waiting to be understood. So let the forest's edge grow soft now, and the light fade gently down to a deep and velvet blue, and let the herd of Thestrals gather in the cool grass beneath the trees. One by one, the great dark creatures fold their leathery wings and lower their strange, gentle heads, their wide white eyes half closing, their skeletal sides rising and falling with slow and even breath. There is nothing here to fear, nothing at all, only a company of patient and loyal creatures settling into the stillness of the night, keeping their quiet watch at the border of the sleeping wood. Let their calm settle over you like a soft, dark blanket. Let their slow breathing draw your own breath deeper and slower. And let whatever you have carried into this night grow lighter and more peaceful in their patient company. The Thestrals are only quiet, only kind, and the dark around you is only rest, gathering you gently, gently, down into a deep and untroubled sleep. Tonight we come to a story that sounds, at first, like a fearful one, and yet we will tell it so slowly and from so safe a distance that it becomes instead an old and drowsy legend, the kind of tale murmured beside a low fire on a winter night, more soothing than frightening. It is the story of the Basilisk, the great serpent bred long ago in darkness, and though in its day it was a terror, tonight it is only a sleeping monster in an old story, far beneath our feet and far from your warm and resting room. Let us walk toward it gently, then, the way one walks toward a legend rather than a danger, curious and calm, knowing all the while that everything we speak of happened long ago and safely away. The basilisk is a serpent, but a serpent grown to an enormous and impossible length, its scaled body thick as the trunk of an old tree, its coils able to fill a great hall from end to end. It is a creature made by dark craft rather than by nature, hatched by strange and forbidden means, and it carries within it two terrible gifts. The first is its gaze, for to look directly into the eyes of a basilisk is to fall at once and forever, and even to catch its stare by some indirect reflection in a puddle or a pane of glass or the round eye of a camera is enough to freeze a living thing into a cold and dreamless stillness. The second is its venom, a poison so potent that few things in all the world can withstand it, running through its long curved fangs like liquid ruin. These are fearsome powers, it is true, and yet as we speak of them here, softly and from far away, they become almost abstract. The properties of a creature in a book, no nearer to you than the pictures in an old illustrated bestiary. Long, long ago, one of the founders of the great forest school, a clever and secretive wizard whose emblem was the serpent, is said to have bred such a creature and hidden it away in a secret chamber deep beneath the castle, sealed behind old magic and forgotten by nearly everyone. There the basilisk waited, coiled in the dark, sleeping through the slow turning of the centuries, waking only when a true heir came at last to rouse it. For most of that vast stretch of time it simply slept, a great quiet weight in the deep stone, dreaming its cold serpent dreams while, far above, generations of children learned and laughed and grew up and went home, never knowing what rested beneath their feet. There is something almost peaceful in that image when you hold it gently enough, of a monster that spent nearly all its long existence asleep, harmless in its slumber, a danger only in the rare and distant moments when it woke. When at last it did stir, in a year the school long remembered, its passage through the castle was marked less by roaring than by a strange and eerie quiet. It moved through the old plumbing of the place, sliding through the wide pipes that ran behind the walls and beneath the floors, a great serpent flowing unseen through the very bones of the building, so that its coming was heralded only by a cold slithering whisper in the stone. Where it passed, things fell still. Several of the students and even a cat were found frozen in that cold and dreamless petrifaction, not truly harmed, only stopped, held motionless as statues until a cure could be found and they could be gently woken again. And there was one small sign that always went before it, a strange and telling omen, for the spiders of the castle fled its coming in long dark streams, pouring out through every crack and gap toward the safety of the forest. For the spiders feared the basilisk above all things and would not stay to face it. To watch the spiders flee was to know, without being told, that the old serpent was awake. But every such story must come to its ending, and the ending of the basilisk is one that even a very sleepy listener may hold without any fear at all. For it happened deep beneath the castle long ago, and it set everything right. Down in that hidden chamber, a young boy no older than a second-year student faced the great serpent, and though the monster was vast and terrible, help came to him in his need, and into his hand came an ancient blade, a goblin-forged sword set with bright stones, once wielded by the brave founder whose emblem was the lion. With that sword the boy struck, and the long reign of the sleeping monster came to its close there in the dark, the great coils falling still at last. And here is the strange gift the story leaves behind. For even in its ending the basilisk gave something of itself to the world. One of its long venomous fangs and the deadly poisons soaked into that old blade would go on in later years to unmake more than one of the most terrible dark objects ever crafted, the hidden vessels of a dark wizard's broken soul. The venom that had frozen the innocent became, in the end, one of the few things that could destroy a far greater evil, and so even this fearsome creature was woven, at the last, into the undoing of darkness. It is worth remembering, too, as we let this old legend wind toward its close, just how rare and strange a thing a basilisk truly is, and how far removed from anything in the ordinary living world. It is not a creature that is born and grows and wanders as other beasts do, breeding and spreading across the land. It is made, once and with great difficulty, by a dark and forbidden craft that few have ever attempted and fewer still have mastered, and so there have only ever been a mere handful of them in all the long history of the wizarding world. Each one is a singular thing, a monster of a single hidden place, and when it is gone entirely, leaving behind only the tale of it. And even in life, the creature spends the overwhelming greater part of its endless years simply sleeping, coiled and motionless in the deep dark, needing little, wanting nothing, waking only rarely and briefly before sinking back once more into its long slumber. When you think of it that way, the basilisk becomes less a terror than a kind of vast and lonely sleeper, an ancient thing that wished, more than anything, only to be left undisturbed in the quiet of the deep, and there is something almost peaceable in that, when it is held gently enough in a drowsy and unfrightened mind. And that is why the basilisk, for all its old terror, need not trouble your rest tonight in the least. It is a monster of a story that is already finished, a serpent that spent almost the whole of its long life peacefully asleep, and that met its end long ago beneath an old castle far away. There is no chamber beneath your floor, no whisper in your walls, no cold slither in the pipes, only the quiet safe walls of your own warm room, and the soft dark gathering kindly around you. The tale is told, the serpent is long still, and the only thing left of it now is the drowsy comfort of a legend that ends the way legends should, with the danger undone and the sleepers gently woken and everything set right. So let the deep chamber fade from your mind now, and the cold stone with it, and let yourself sink back into the warmth of the present, where nothing stirs and nothing threatens, and all is peaceful and still. Think, if you think of anything at all, only of how long that old serpent slept, deep and quiet and untroubled, coil upon coil in the dark, and let that long, slow slumber become a kind of invitation to your own. There is nothing left to fear in the old story, nothing at all. Only the soft weight of sleep settling gently over you, drawing you down as the basilisk itself sank into its centuries of rest, deeper and quieter and calmer with every slow and easy breath, all the way, at last, into a still and dreamless sleep. Deep in the heart of the forbidden forest, far from any path and far from any light, there is a hollow beneath the ancient trees where a very old and very large family made its home, and tonight we go softly to meet them, the great spiders, and the greatest and gentlest of them all, whose name was Aragog. It sounds, perhaps, like it ought to be a frightening tale. For these are enormous creatures, spiders grown to the size of small horses and larger, with many legs and many gleaming eyes. And yet, told softly and with a kind heart, this is really a story about loyalty and family, and the quiet bonds that hold even in the deepest and darkest parts of the wood. And there is far more tenderness in it than fear. So let us walk gently in among the trees and listen. Aragog was an acromantula, which is the proper name for these vast and clever spiders, and he came into the world not in the wild forest at all, but in the care of a kind-hearted boy, the same gentle soul who would one day grow into the great forest giant we have already met more than once. When Aragog was small, no larger than a saucer, that boy kept him hidden in a cupboard and fed him scraps and cared for him in secret, loving the strange creature the way he loved every strange creature, without a trace of fear. And Aragog never forgot it. Long after he had grown to his enormous size, long after he had been carried out to the safety of the forest to live where such a creature could live freely, he kept a strange and steadfast loyalty to the one who had fed him and cared for him in those first small days. It is one of the truest threads in his whole long story, that fierce faithfulness to a single kind hand, and it tells you something gentle about even the most fearsome seeming beasts, that they too remember kindness and hold to it across all the years. Out in the deep forest Aragog grew and thrived, and there he was, joined by a devoted mate, a spider named Mosog, and the two of them built a life together in the hollow beneath the trees. Picture the pair of them there in the green gloom, side by side through season after season, and from them, over the long years, came children, and then their children's children, until the hollow was filled with a whole vast colony of spiders, generation upon generation, all descended from that one small creature once kept in a cupboard and loved. It was a strange kingdom, to be sure, a domed clearing draped in silvery webbing, alive with the soft rustle of many legs and the slow patient stirring of the great old spider at its heart. But it was a kingdom built on the oldest and simplest foundation there is, a family that stayed together, a mate that stayed faithful, a great gathering of kin held close in the dark. Aragog was their patriarch, blind in his old age and enormous, his once black body gone gray and silvered with the years, and he was tended and honored by all his many descendants, cared for in his frailty the way he had once been cared for in his youth. It is worth lingering for a little while on what such a colony is like in its ordinary days, when no danger stirs and the forest is deep and still. The acromantulas are cleverer by far than any common spider, able to reason and to remember, and among themselves they keep an order all their own, deferring to the great patriarch at the center of the hollow, tending the eggs and the young, spinning and mending the vast silvery webs that drape the domed clearing like curtains of pale silk. The little ones, when they hatch, are pale and soft and no bigger than the palm of a hand, and they cluster together in the warm heart of the nest until their legs grow long and strong enough to carry them out into the wider wood. The forest around them is a whole world of its own, full of soft rustlings and distant hootings and the slow creak of ancient trees, and the spiders move through it in the dark with a sureness born of long generations in the same deep place. It is not, whatever a fearful traveler might imagine, a place of ceaseless menace. For the most part, it is quiet and patient and bound together by the same small loyalties that bind any family in any home. The old ones cared for, the young ones tended, the whole great company holding close beneath the sheltering leaves. He lived, in the end, to a very great age, far greater than most creatures are ever granted, and when at last his long life drew toward its close, he was surrounded by his own, by Mosag, and by the countless children of that deep hollow. And here the story turns, softly, toward one of its most unexpectedly tender moments, for when the old spider died, the one who came to grieve for him and to lay him to rest was that same gentle giant who had loved him as a hatchling so very long before. There in the forest, with a heavy heart and careful hands, the old friend dug a great grave and buried the creature he had raised, mourning him plainly and without shame. For to him Aragog had never been a monster at all, but simply a beloved old companion, one of the truest friends of his strange and lonely boyhood. It was a quiet burial in the deep wood, a farewell between two old friends of the most unlikely kind, and there is something in it that softens the whole idea of what these great spiders are, and reminds us that grief and love belong to every corner of the living world. For that, in the end, is the gentle heart of this whole chapter, and it is a good thing to carry with you as the night grows deep. The Forbidden Forest is a wild place, and its creatures are large and strange, and to a nervous traveler the great spiders might seem the very picture of everything to be afraid of. And yet, looked at closely and with an open heart, even here, in the darkest hollow beneath the oldest trees, there are the very same gentle bonds that hold in the brightest and safest of homes. There is a faithful mate, and there are cherished children, and there is a loyalty that lasts a lifetime, and there is an old creature loved and tended in his frailty and mourned when he is gone. The forest, for all its shadows, is not a place empty of tenderness. It is only another place where families keep close and remember their kindnesses and hold to one another in the dark, and there is a deep comfort in knowing that. So let the great hollow grow quiet now, and the green gloom deepen into a soft and velvet black, and let the whole vast family of spiders settle into the stillness of the forest night. The soft rustle of many legs slows and grows fainter. The countless gleaming eyes drift closed, and the old webs sway gently in the cool and windless dark. There is nothing here to fear, only a great and ancient family at rest, holding close together beneath the sheltering trees the way families do when the day is done. Let their quiet settle over you as well, and let the deep peace of the sleeping forest draw you gently down. Somewhere far away in the warm dark the old bonds hold, the loyal hearts rest, and the whole living wood breathes slow and easy. And you may rest now too, safe and held and softly cared for, drifting down through the gentle dark, all the way into a deep and peaceful sleep. There is a kind of cold that is not the cold of winter, not the cold of snow on the windowsill or frost on the morning grass. And tonight we will speak of the creatures who carry that cold with them wherever they go. And we will speak of them softly, from far away, so that they cannot come anywhere near the warm and quiet room where you are resting now. These are the Dementors, the tall, hooded shapes that drift rather than walk, gliding low over the ground as though they weigh nothing at all, as though they were made of shadow and breath and the memory of sorrow rather than anything solid. They do not run, and they do not hurry, for they have never needed to. They move at the slow, patient pace of things that are certain, and wherever they pass, the light seems to grow thin, and the air seems to grow still, and the world draws in upon itself as if bracing against a wind that has not yet come. You would know a Dementor first by the cold, long before you saw its shape. The warmth would seem to leak out of the air around you, the way heat leaves a room when a door is opened onto a winter night, and then a little more, and a little more, until your breath might mist before your face, and a fine lace of frost might creep across the glass of a nearby window. The Dementors feed on warmth, though not the warmth of fire or blanket or the low golden lamp beside a bed. They feed on the warmth that lives inside a person, the quiet gladness of a good memory, the small, steady comfort of hope, the soft pleasure of a happy hour long past. All of this they draw out gently and greedily, the way one might breathe in the scent of something sweet, until only the cold and the gray are left behind. They were bred, if they were bred at all, out of the darkest and dampest places, and no one truly remembers a time before them. They wear long hooded cloaks of a deep and rotten black, and beneath the hoods there is very little that anyone has ever wished to look upon. Only a suggestion of grayness, of something scabbed and blind and old. Their hands, when they show, are thin and glistening and gray, the hands of something long drowned, and they keep them mostly hidden in their sleeves. They have no eyes that anyone has found, and yet they sense the living unerringly, drawn to feeling the way a cold current is drawn downhill, always seeking the warmth they can never keep and never hold. And beneath their hoods there is said to be a slow rattling breath, a long dragging sound like something being drawn very slowly through water, though it is a sound you will never hear tonight. For they are far from here, and growing further with every gentle word, kept safely out at the very rim of the story where the cold cannot travel. For long ages the Dementors served as the guards of a certain island fortress far out in a cold northern sea, a grim square tower called Azkaban, where the wizarding world once sent those it wished to forget. The Dementors stood watch there season after season, gliding along the corridors of that terrible place, and their presence alone was punishment enough. For near them no prisoner could hold a single happy thought for long. All the good of a life would be slowly drawn away, memory by memory, gladness by gladness, until only the worst remained, only the darkest hours replaying again and again in a mind grown cold. And yet, for all their long service, the Dementors were never truly loyal, never truly trustworthy, for they served only their hunger and their cold, and they would turn toward whatever fed them best, following power and fear as water follows the low ground. In the end, they could not be relied upon, and that is one of the quiet lessons of their story, that a thing which knows only hunger can never truly be a friend, however long it stands at the gate. But there is a shield against the cold, and this is the part to hold close as you drift, the warm and shining heart of the whole strange tale. Against the Dementors there is a single charm, and it is made not of anger and not of force, but of happiness itself, of the purest and gladdest memory a person can find within themselves. To cast it, one must reach down into the warm dark of the mind and take hold of a single bright thing, a moment of real joy, of being loved or being safe or being holy and simply glad. And one must hold that memory until it fills the whole chest with light. And out of that light comes a guardian, a shape of pure silver brightness that pours from the tip of the wand, a Patronus, and it takes on a form all its own. For some, It is a great stag with wide, bright antlers, stepping forward across the frost. For some it is a silver doe, gentle and unhurried. For others it comes as a hare, a wolf, an otter turning in the air, a phoenix, a swan, each one a small living lantern made of gladness. And the cold cannot bear it, and the hooded shapes fall back and drift away, and the warmth comes flooding home. There is something tender in this, when you think of it slowly, in the quiet, that the one true defense against the deepest cold is not a weapon at all, but a happy memory held with all one's heart, that gladness itself, when it is real and deeply felt, is stronger than any shadow. The brighter and truer the memory, the stronger the guardian that rises from it. And so the shield grows out of exactly the thing the Dementors most wish to steal, and cannot. And this is why you need not fear them here, tonight, in this warm and gentle place, for you are wrapped already in warmth, and the room around you is full of small good things. The softness beneath you, the quiet dark, the slow and even rhythm of your own breathing. Let the Dementors stay where they belong then, far out over their cold gray sea, drifting slowly around their distant tower, small and dim and very far away, kept at the edge of the story where they can trouble no one. Let the frost stay on that faraway window and never on yours. Here there is only warmth, only the soft weight of the blankets and the kind dark of the room, and if you wished, you could imagine your own silver guardian standing gently at the door, a shape of quiet light keeping watch while you rest, letting nothing cold come near, asking nothing of you at all, only glowing softly in the doorway, like a nightlight made of your own happiest memory. And so we leave the hooded shapes behind us, gliding away into their far gray distance, and we turn back toward the warmth, back toward the low lamp and the soft pillow, and the slow, steady tide of your breathing. The cold cannot reach you here. It never could. There is nothing in this room but comfort, nothing around you but warmth and quiet and the kindly dark, and every breath you take draws in a little more of that warmth and lets a little more of the day slip away. Feel how heavy and easy your body has become, how the smallest muscles of your face and hands have loosened, how there is nothing at all you need to hold. The guardian glows softly at the door. The cold is far away and growing fainter, and you are warm, and you are safe, and you are drifting now, gently and without effort, down and down into the deep, soft dark where sleep is already waiting, quiet and kind, to gather you in. Tonight we will meet a creature that no one has ever truly seen, not once in all the long history of the wizarding world, and that is a strange and rather gentle thing to say about a creature at all. It is called a boggart, and the reason no one has ever seen its true shape is very simple and rather sweet when you sit with it in the quiet. For a boggart, left alone in the dark, does not seem to have any shape of its own at all. It waits, formless and patient, in the small dark hollows of the world, and only when a living person draws near does it become anything. And what it becomes is never itself, for it becomes instead the very thing that person most fears. It is a mirror of fear and nothing more, an empty shape that borrows its terror entirely from the one who looks upon it. And once you understand that, half of its power has already melted away. A boggart loves the dark and the enclosed, the small forgotten spaces where no light reaches. It settles into the backs of old wardrobes, among the coats and the mothballs, and into the deep drawers of desks that no one has opened in years, and beneath the sinks, and in the hollow spaces under stairs, and in the tall, silent grandfather clocks that no longer tick. Anywhere that is dark and closed and rarely disturbed, a boggart might be waiting, resting in its own shapelessness, until the day someone opens the door. It seems almost a shy thing when you think of it kindly, a creature that hides itself away in the quietest and least troubled corners of a house, wanting nothing more than to be left alone in its dark little cupboard, harmless and unseen, until curiosity or accident brings a living face near enough to borrow. And when the door is opened, the boggart reaches quietly into the mind of whoever stands before it and finds there the single deepest fear and puts it on like a costume, so that each person who meets the same boggart sees something entirely different. To one, it might become a great spider, tall as a person, with many hairy legs and too many eyes. To another, it might rise up as a serpent, or as a towering wave of black water, or as a cold hooded figure gliding forward, or as a mummy wrapped in ancient cloth, or as some sorrow too private and too personal to name. Whatever weighs most heavily on the secret heart, that is what steps out of the wardrobe. And because it takes its whole strength from the fear of the one who watches, the boggart is at its most dangerous when a person faces it alone. For then, there is only the single fear filling the whole of the shape, undiluted and undisturbed. But here is where the story turns warm, and even a little merry, for there is a way to defeat a boggart, and it is not a fierce way at all. It cannot be beaten by strength or by anger. It can only be beaten by laughter. The charm that undoes a boggart is a small and cheerful piece of magic, and what it does is force the frightening shape to become something absurd, something so silly and ridiculous that fear simply cannot survive the sight of it. The one who casts it must picture, in the very moment of fear, some way to make the dreadful thing funny, and then, with a flick of the wand and a single light word, the terror is twisted into comedy before it can take hold. And so the great spider might suddenly find its many legs skidding uselessly on roller skates, sprawling and sliding in every direction at once, unable to stand. The towering serpent might shrink into a limp and harmless jack-in-the-box. The cold-hooded figure might trip over its own long cloak. The mummy might get its wrappings tangled about its feet and stumble. The stern and frightening thing that a moment ago filled the room becomes, in an instant, something so plainly ridiculous that the fear collapses into a laugh, and the laugh is the true weapon. For a boggart cannot endure to be laughed at. Laughter is to a boggart what warmth is to frost. It cannot hold its shape against it. It shrinks and it wavers, and if many people laugh at once, so that the poor confused thing cannot even settle on a single fear, it grows bewildered and small, and finally bursts apart into nothing, like a soap bubble touched by a fingertip. There was once a very kind teacher, gentle and a little worn, and rather shabby in his mended robes, who taught a whole class of young witches and wizards exactly this lesson, and it is one of the warmest lessons in all of these tales. He brought a boggart into the classroom, still trapped and rattling inside an old wardrobe, and one by one he had his students step forward to face their fears and turn them to laughter. And so the class became a strange and wonderful parade, each fear rising up in turn and then tumbling instantly into something ridiculous. The room filling not with screams, but with startled, delighted, helpless laughter. A frightening figure would loom, and then, with a small, bright word, it would find itself wearing a ridiculous hat, or a long grandmother's dress, or a great spinning bow tie, and the whole class would laugh together, and the boggart, dizzy and defeated by all that merriment, would spin faster and faster among its borrowed shapes, until at last it simply could not go on. There is something worth carrying softly into sleep in all of this, a quiet truth folded inside the funny lesson. Fear, so much of the time, is like the boggart. It is a shape that has no substance of its own. It borrows all its size and all its strength from us, from the attention we give it and the seriousness with which we let it fill the room. And when it is met not with more fear, not with a stiff and trembling heart, but with softness, with gentleness, with the willingness to see how small and how absurd it really is, it begins to shrink. The thing that seemed to fill the whole doorway turns out to have been mostly air. The dread that felt enormous in the dark turns out to fold up very small when a warm light is turned upon it. What frightens us in the dark is so often only the dark itself, and the shapes we lend it, and in the morning the wardrobe is only a wardrobe, and the coat on the hook is only a coat. So if any small worry has followed you here into the quiet of tonight, any little shape lurking at the edge of the dark, you might do with it exactly what those gentle students learned to do. You might picture it clearly, and then picture it turned silly, dressed in a ridiculous hat, tripping over its own feet, spinning about on skates until it topples over, until the worry that seemed so solid a moment ago dissolves into something you can only smile at, and then let go of entirely. There is nothing here that cannot be met with a soft heart. There is nothing in the dark of this room but comfort and quiet and the slow rhythm of your breathing. Let the wardrobe stand quiet in the corner of the story, its door closed, its shapeless little shadow harmless and forgotten. Let the last of the laughter fade gently into the warm dark. Feel how your face has softened, how your shoulders have grown heavy and easy, how there is nothing at all left to guard against. The fears of the day are only Boggarts, and you have laughed them all away, and now there is only the softness beneath you, and the kindly dark around you, and the slow warm tide of your own breath, carrying you gently, easily, without the smallest effort, down and down into a deep and peaceful sleep. Of all the creatures we will meet on this long and gentle journey, there is perhaps none so beautiful and none so full of quiet hope as the one we come to now, and it is a good one to hold in the heart as the night grows deep, for its whole nature is the nature of gentle endings and gentle beginnings. This is the phoenix, the great firebird of the wizarding world, and there was one phoenix in particular, a companion to a wise old headmaster whose name was Fawkes, and it is by his soft light that we will come to know his ancient kind. A phoenix is a bird about the size of a swan, and to look upon one is to feel the eye grow still and the breath grow slow, for it is the color of fire itself. Its plumage is a deep and glowing crimson, the red of embers and the red of sunset, and its long sweeping tail is the brilliant gold of a flame at its brightest, so that the whole bird seems to smolder softly with a warm and living light. Its claws and its beak gleam like gold, and its eyes are dark and gentle and impossibly old. The eyes of a creature that has seen a great many ages come and go, and has learned, somewhere in all that time, a deep and unhurried peace. When a phoenix sits quietly upon its perch, it seems less like a bird and more like a small warm lamp given the shape of feathers, a soft glowing thing that fills a room with the feeling of safety. And it is a gentle creature by nature, patient and calm and slow to be troubled, content to sit for long, peaceful hours with its feathers softly shining, watching the world go by through those ancient and untroubled eyes, so that simply to be near a phoenix is to feel one's own heart grow quieter and warmer and more at ease. Now the great wonder of the phoenix, the thing that sets it apart from every other creature in the world, is the way it lives its life. For a phoenix does not die as other things die. When a phoenix grows very old, when its feathers dim and its bright body grows tired and heavy and weak, it does not simply fade and pass away. Instead, there comes a day, a burning day, when the old bird bursts quietly into flame, and in a moment it is gone, crumbled softly into a small gray heap of fine warm ash. And this is not an ending, though it looks like one. For if you were to watch that little pile of ash for only a moment, you would see it stir and tremble, and out of the ashes would rise a tiny newborn chick, wrinkled and small and blinking, the very same phoenix made new again, ready to grow and shine, and one day burn and rise once more. And so it goes, round and round, dying and rising forever, an endless, gentle circle, with no true ending anywhere in it at all. There is such comfort folded into that idea when you let it settle over you slowly in the quiet dark. The phoenix teaches, without ever saying a word, that some endings are not endings at all, only turnings, only the old and tired giving way softly to the new and bright. The way the evening gives way to morning, the way winter gives way in its own time to spring. Nothing is lost. Nothing is truly gone. There is only the long, warm circle, turning gently on and on. And the phoenix has other gifts besides its rising, gifts of great tenderness. Its tears have the power to heal. A single drop of a phoenix's tears, fallen upon a wound, no matter how deep or how grievous, can close it and soothe it and draw the hurt away, so that even a wound from the most terrible of venoms can be healed by the quiet weeping of this gentle bird. There is a softness in that beyond almost any other magic, that the same creature which rises from fire should carry within itself a cure made of nothing more than its own gentle grief. And a phoenix is far stronger than it looks, able to carry enormous weights upon its back or in its golden claws, so that even several full-grown people might be lifted and borne safely away by a single bird that seems no larger than a swan. And most beautiful of all, perhaps, is the song of the phoenix. It is a music unlike any other, low and warm and shivering with feeling. And it is said that the song of a phoenix strengthens the pure of heart and fills the good and the brave with courage, while it strikes fear into those who are cruel. To hear it is to feel something loosen in the chest, some knot of worry or grief coming gently undone, and to feel, without quite knowing why, that everything will somehow be well after all. It is the sound of hope given a voice, drifting out warm and golden into the air. There was a time when Fawkes came to the aid of a young boy far beneath the school, deep in a hidden chamber of stone, in a moment of the greatest danger, and the great red bird flew down out of nowhere, bearing help in its claws, and its healing tears saved a life that would otherwise have been lost. Fawkes was loyal beyond measure, bound to his old friend the headmaster, not by any spell or any binding, but by love alone, choosing freely, year after year, to stay. A phoenix is never owned and never truly tamed. It comes and goes as it pleases, and if it stays beside a person, it stays only out of its own gentle devotion, which is the truest kind of loyalty there is. And when at last that wise old headmaster came to the end of his long life, it was Fawkes who sang for him. High above the grieving school, as the sorrow settled over everyone below, the phoenix lifted his voice in a lament so beautiful and so full of feeling that it seemed to speak for every heart that ached that day. And then, his song finished, Fawkes flew away, up and out over the mountains, and was not seen at the school again. And yet, even that departure, even that grief, was somehow gentled by all that the phoenix is. For how could one feel that anything was truly ended, watching a creature whose whole life is the endless rising of new light out of old ashes? That is the gift the phoenix leaves us with tonight, the very gentlest way of thinking about endings that has ever been imagined. Every day burns down softly into its own gray ash, the way this day of yours is burning down now. growing dim and quiet and warm at its edges. And out of that ash a new day will rise, whole and bright and beginning again. And there is nothing to fear in the fading, nothing to hold on to, nothing at all to do, but let the old day go. Let it crumble softly away like the phoenix into its warm gray ash. It has done all it needed to do. It can rest now, and so can you. Picture, if you like, the great red and gold bird settled somewhere warm and safe, its head tucked beneath its glowing wing, its own soft light dimming gently as it sleeps. That low and lovely song faded now into silence, the whole room filled only with the memory of its warmth. There is nothing left to carry, there is nothing left to guard. The day is turning quietly to ash, and out of it, in its own good time, tomorrow will rise all on its own, without any help from you at all. So let your breathing slow, and let your body grow heavy and warm as glowing embers. And let yourself sink softly down, gently and without effort, into the deep and healing dark of sleep, where you will rest and be made new, and rise again with the morning. Tonight we come to some of the smallest and most devoted creatures in the whole of the wizarding world, and this is a tender chapter, one about loyalty and about kindness, and about the way a little gentleness can slowly heal a heart that has been wounded for a very long time. These are the house elves, small beings not much more than knee-high, with thin arms and thin legs, and heads a little too large for their bodies, with great round eyes like tennis balls, and long pointed ears like a bat's, and voices high and squeaky and eager. They are among the most powerful of magical creatures in their own quiet way, able to appear and vanish in an instant with a small crack of sound, able to lift and clean and cook and mend with a snap of their long fingers. And yet for all this power, they have long been the humblest and the most overlooked of all. For house elves are, by ancient and often unkind magic, bound to serve the wizarding households they belong to, cooking and cleaning and keeping the great old houses in order, working through the day and the night without pay and without thanks, and asking for none. The binding is a deep and old one, and it can be a cruel one, for many house elves are made to punish themselves whenever they feel they have done wrong, and many live in fear of their masters. And yet, for all the hardness of that old arrangement, the house elves themselves are gentle beings, cheerful and eager and wonderfully proud of their work, taking a quiet joy in a floor swept clean and a fire well tended and a meal set steaming upon the table, finding in the smallest and humblest tasks a real and honest happiness that few other creatures ever know. Traditionally, a house elf is freed only when the master presents it with clothing of its own, a single garment. And until that day comes, the elf must serve, whether it is treated with kindness or with cruelty. It is a hard old arrangement, and much of the beauty of these stories lies in the small ways it is softened and set right. There was one house elf named Dobby, and his is one of the warmest tales of all. Dobby belonged for many years to a cold and cruel family, and he was treated harshly. And yet, within his small chest there beat a heart full of longing, a longing for freedom that he could barely speak of, and a fierce, stubborn goodness that no amount of unkindness could crush. When Dobby came to know a certain young wizard, a boy who had shown him nothing but decency, he devoted himself to that boy entirely, risking his own safety again and again to try to protect him, even when his efforts went comically and dreadfully wrong. And at last, that same boy freed Dobby by a small and clever trick, slipping a single sock inside a book and passing it to the cruel master, who handed the book to the elf without thinking, so that Dobby caught the sock and was, in that instant, a free elf at last. And oh, the joy of it, the leaping and the spinning and the sheer delight of a creature who had wanted only this one thing for the whole of his long life. Dobby was proud of his freedom ever after. He took to wearing whatever odd bits of clothing he could find, mismatched socks and strange hats piled high, wearing them like treasures. And though he was free to go anywhere and do anything, he chose, of his own will, to help the friends he loved, and he served them not out of binding now, but out of love, which is the only kind of service that is truly beautiful. And Dobby's story ends bravely and quietly, for he gave his own small life to save the very friends he had chosen, and he died a free elf, held gently in the arms of the boy he had loved, at peace, having lived and died exactly as he wished, his own master and no one else's. There is grief in that, but a soft and grateful grief, the kind that warms as much as it aches. There was another elf, old and bitter, named Creature, who lived alone for many years in a dark and gloomy house, muttering unkindly to himself, worn down and soured by a lifetime of loneliness and sorrow. Creature had been treated coldly, and he had grown cold in return, suspicious and resentful and clinging to old griefs. He carried a great secret sorrow of his own, a locket and a lost master he had loved and been unable to save, a wound he had nursed in silence for years and years. For a long time it seemed that nothing could soften him. But then, slowly, something changed. He was treated with a small and steady kindness. He was given a token of respect. He was thanked and listened to and spoken to gently and asked about the grief he carried. And little by little, like frost melting from a window pane in the morning sun, old bitter Creature began to soften and to open, until the sour and muttering Creature became a devoted and even cheerful one, bustling happily in the kitchen, loyal and warm, healed at last after so many long cold years. That is one of the quiet miracles of these tales, that even the most wounded heart can be mended, if only someone is patient and gentle enough to try. There was Winky, too, a timid and gentle elf who suffered greatly when she lost the household she had served, and who was cared for afterward in the vast warm kitchens of the school. And in those kitchens there worked a whole great company of house elves, more than 100 of them, bustling happily about in the firelit warmth deep beneath the castle, cooking the enormous feasts and keeping the fires bright, most of them content and cheerful in their work, singing softly as they polished and stirred. There is something cozy in imagining that great warm kitchen far below the sleeping school, all copper pots gleaming and hearths glowing orange, the small busy figures moving about in the golden light, the smell of good bread and warm soup filling the air, everything tended and cared for while the rest of the castle sleeps. The house elves leave us with a lesson as soft as a warm blanket, and it is this: loyalty and dignity can live in the smallest of hearts, and there is no creature so humble that it does not deserve to be treated with kindness, and no heart so wounded and so hardened that it cannot be healed by gentleness given patiently over time. A single kind word, a single small token of respect, a single moment of being truly seen can begin to melt away years of cold. That is a gentle thought to carry down into sleep, that kindness is never wasted, that even the smallest tenderness sends ripples of warmth out further than we can ever know. So let yourself imagine that great warm kitchen now, deep and safe beneath a sleeping castle, the fires burning low and orange, the copper pots gleaming softly, the small devoted figures growing still at last as the long day's work is done. All the bread is baked, all the fires are banked low and glowing, all the work is finished, and there is nothing left to do but rest. The elves curl up in their warm corners near the embers, their great eyes closing, their busy hands finally still, and the whole warm room settles into a deep and contented quiet. You have nothing left to do either. Everything is tended, everything is cared for. The fires are warm and the work is done, and you can let go of all of it now, sinking softly into the warmth like the elves beside their glowing hearth, drifting down and down, gently and easily, into a deep and peaceful sleep. Tonight, we make a slow and quiet descent, deep down beneath the busy streets of the wizarding world, into a place of cool stone and old silence and shining gold, and we will take it very gently, one soft step at a time, the way one might wander down a long stone staircase by candlelight, growing sleepier with every step. For tonight, we come to the goblins, the ancient keepers of the wizarding bank, the master metalworkers and shrewd and careful guardians of treasure, and to the great bank they keep, a place called Gringotts, which reaches down beneath the ground further than almost anyone has ever gone. The goblins are a small folk, no taller than a young child, with clever dark eyes and long, clever fingers, with pointed features and a certain sharp and watchful intelligence about them. They are proud, and they are old, and they are not to be trifled with, for the goblins have a long memory, longer than that of almost any other people, and they forget nothing, neither a kindness nor a slight. They keep their own ways and their own laws, quite separate from the ways of wizards, and they have their own deep notions of what is right and what belongs to whom. Notions that do not always match those of the wizards they deal with, which has led, over the long centuries, to a certain wariness between the two peoples, a careful and watchful distance kept on both sides. They speak a language of their own as well, a rough and rolling tongue that few outside their own people have ever learned, and they conduct their affairs with a slow and deliberate care, never hurried, never careless, weighing each word and each coin with the same unhurried attention, as befits a people who measure time not in days, but in the long, slow turning of centuries. The goblins are, above all, makers, craftsmen of extraordinary skill, and the things they forge are unlike anything a human hand could make. Goblin-made silver and goblin-made steel are treasures beyond price, for the metal they work is alive in a way that ordinary metal is not. A blade forged by goblins takes into itself only that which makes it stronger, and will never rust and never dull, remaining bright and keen for 1,000 years. There is one such blade in these tales, a beautiful sword of gleaming silver set with great rubies, forged long ago by the goblins for a founder of the school, a blade of such fine make that it seems to appear when it is most needed, always ready in the hand of the worthy. To the goblins, such a made thing never truly leaves the maker, for in their old way of thinking, the true owner of a crafted treasure is always the one who made it, and this is one of the deep differences that has kept the two peoples so carefully apart. But it is the bank itself that we have come to see tonight, and it is a wonderful place to grow sleepy in. All cool marble and hushed halls and endless stone. Above ground, Gringotts is a great and gleaming building of white marble, tall and grand. Its high hall lined with long counters where goblins sit upon high stools, weighing gems and measuring gold, and writing in enormous ledgers with long quills, all in a deep and businesslike quiet. But the true heart of Gringotts lies far below, in the vaults, and to reach them one must descend, down and down, deeper than seems possible, into the living rock beneath the city. The way down is by a small cart that runs upon narrow tracks through the dark stone tunnels, and this is where the descent truly begins. The cart rushes and rattles along its winding way, plunging down through the darkness, swooping around great bends and dropping down long slopes, past the openings of countless vaults, deeper and deeper into the cool black heart of the earth. Down there, the air grows cold and still, and smells of stone and old metal, and stalactites hang glistening from the ceilings of the caverns, and an underground lake lies black and silent far below. So that the whole world of the surface, the sunlight and the noise and the busy streets, seems very far away indeed. It is a place of profound and ancient quiet, of deep stone silence, the perfect place to feel the mind grow slow and heavy. The deepest vaults, the oldest and the most heavily protected, lie furthest down of all, and they are guarded by enchantments of great cunning and by things far stranger than any lock. There are doors that can be opened only by the long, clever finger of a goblin drawn gently along the surface. Doors that will swallow up any thief foolish enough to try them without a goblin's help, holding them trapped inside until someone comes, perhaps years later, to check. There are waterfalls that wash away all enchantment and disguise from anyone who passes through them. And down in the very deepest dark, before the oldest vaults of all, there lives a dragon. This is a dragon quite unlike the fierce and fiery beasts of the mountains, for it has lived so long in the darkness beneath the earth that it has grown pale, its scales faded to a whitish pink, and its eyes have grown dim and nearly blind from a life without sun. It is a great sad creature, chained in the dark, kept as the last and most fearsome guardian of the treasures below. There is a gentleness owed to such a creature, for all its size and its power, and in the end of its story, it is set free at last, breaking loose and rising up and up through the tunnels and out into the open sky, spreading its pale wings and flying away toward the mountains and the sunlight it had not seen in so very long. That is a good thing to picture as we begin to leave the deep places behind. A great pale dragon rising slowly up out of the dark, out of the stone, into the free and open air. There is one goblin in particular who knew the deep vaults better than most, a sharp and careful fellow named Griphook, who guided travelers down through the tunnels and knew the ways of the doors and the enchantments, and who carried within him all the pride and all the long memory of his people. Through such a guide, the deep world of the bank could be known. That cool and careful world of stone and gold, where nothing is ever hurried, where the ledgers are kept in perfect order, where the treasures rest undisturbed in their vaults through the long, slow turning of the years. And that is a soothing thought to rest upon as the chapter closes. The thought of all that gold and all those treasures resting quietly in the deep, cool dark, perfectly safe, perfectly guarded, needing nothing, doing nothing, simply resting in the stone silence far below the world. There is a peace in deep places, in cool stone and old quiet, in the knowledge that some things are kept safe without any effort of ours at all, watched over through the long night by patient and careful hands. You do not need to guard anything tonight. You do not need to keep any watch. It is all tended, all locked safely away, all resting in the deep and kindly dark. So let yourself sink now, the way the cart sinks gently down through the tunnels, slower and slower, deeper and deeper, into the cool and quiet dark. Let the busy world of the surface grow faint and far away above you. Let the stone silence close softly around you, cool and still and utterly at peace. There is nothing to keep and nothing to guard and nothing at all to do but rest down here in the deep and gentle dark, where the treasures sleep and the pale dragon has flown away free into the open sky, and where you, too, may now let go of everything and drift softly, slowly, all the way down into a deep and dreamless sleep. Deep within the forbidden forest, in the parts where the trees stand oldest and the branches lace so thickly overhead that only the thinnest silver of moonlight ever reaches the mossy ground, there move the centaurs, and tonight we will walk quietly among them, careful and unhurried, as guests who have been allowed in for a little while. They are creatures of two natures woven into one, for from the waist upward they carry the body of a person, the chest and arms and thoughtful face, while below they are wholly horse, broad and strong and sure of foot, so that they seem to be both the rider and the mount at once, made whole in a single graceful shape. They step through the undergrowth without a sound, their hooves finding the soft earth between the roots, their long tails swaying gently as they go. And to see one standing still at the edge of a clearing is to see something that looks less like a beast and more like a piece of the old forest that has quietly decided to walk. The centaurs of Hogwarts number many, a whole herd that keeps to the deepest reaches of the trees, far from the paths that the students know, in a country of their own that no wizard truly rules. They are proud, deeply and quietly proud, and they carry themselves with a dignity that owes nothing to anyone. They do not think of themselves as beasts, and they do not think of themselves as servants, and above all they do not think of themselves as belonging to the wizarding world that presses so close against the edges of their home. For long ages they have kept themselves apart, wary of wand and word alike, choosing the company of the trees and the stars over the noise and hurry of human affairs. And there is in this choosing a kind of peace, the peace of those who have decided, long ago, exactly where they belong and have no wish to be anywhere else. What the centaurs love, more than anything, is the sky. When the night is clear and the great dark bowl of the heavens opens above the forest, thick with stars beyond counting, the herd gathers in the open places and lifts its many faces to the light, and there they read. For this is their oldest art and their deepest wisdom, the reading of the future in the slow wheeling of the stars and the drift of the planets, the burning of comets and the quiet turning of the moon through its long, patient phases. They watch how one bright point draws near another across the seasons, and how the red planet glows brighter or dims. And in these vast and unhurried movements, they trace the shape of things to come, not in small and hurried ways, but in the great sweep of years and ages. To a centaur, a single night is nothing, and a single life is a small and passing thing, and the fate of one person matters far less than the long turning of the whole wide firmament overhead. Because they read the future in this deep and distant way, the centaurs are slow to act and slower still to interfere in the troubles of mortal creatures. They believe it is not their place to change what the stars have written, and they are reluctant, always, to spend themselves upon the small and frantic doings of wizard kind, holding instead to a patience so vast that it can seem, to hurried folk, almost like coldness. Yet it is not coldness at all. It is the steadiness of those who have watched the heavens for so long that they have learned to trust the slow order of things, to wait, and to keep their own counsel, and to let the night speak in its own time. Among all the herd there was one who chose, once, to reach across the old divide, and his name was Firenze. He was younger than many, with a body pale as ash and a coat that gleamed almost white in the dark. And when he came upon a frightened boy alone and in danger in the deepest part of the forest, he did not hold to the old reluctance of his kind. He knelt, and he let the boy climb onto his back, and he carried him swiftly and surely through the trees to safety, galloping beneath the branches with the stars scattering their light between the leaves. For this kindness he drew the anger of his own people, for the sterner centaurs believed he had lowered himself and betrayed the ways of the herd by serving a human so. Later, when the school had need of a teacher of the stars, it was Firenze who came to walk beneath a ceiling charmed to look like the open night sky, teaching the slow and patient art of reading the heavens to those willing to learn it gently. The sterner voices belonged to centaurs such as Bane, dark of coat and fierce of temper, who held that no centaur should ever bow to serve a person, and to Megorian, grave and gray, who led the herd with a heavy and careful dignity. To them, Firenze had crossed a line that should not be crossed, and they did not soften easily, for the pride of the centaurs runs very deep, and their distrust of wizardkind runs deeper still, worn into them by long ages of being pushed aside and looked down upon. Yet even in their sternness there was no cruelty, only the fierce keeping of a way of life they feared to lose, and beneath it all the same great love of the quiet forest and the burning stars. It is worth pausing, too, upon the deep quiet of the place where the centaurs live, for their home shapes them as surely as their reading of the stars. The heart of the forbidden forest is a country of shadow and hush, where the trees grow so close and so tall that the daylight barely reaches the ground, and where the ordinary sounds of the world above fall away into a soft and living silence. There are glades opening suddenly among the dense trunks where the sky shows through, and it is to these open places that the herd comes when the night is fine. Everything in that forest moves slowly. The drift of mist between the trees, the settling of the leaves, the slow padding of the great watchful bodies through the undergrowth, and a person who wandered there by night might feel the hurry drain quietly out of them. And there is a tenderness in them, for all their reserve, that shows most clearly in the way they guard their own young. The little foals of the herd, unsteady on their new legs, are kept close and watched over and taught, little by little, to lift their faces to the stars and to read the slow signs written there, so that the old wisdom passes gently down from one generation to the next, never hurried, never forced, only handed on as softly as the seasons hand on their turning. To picture a young centaur standing beside an elder in a moonlit glade, both of them silent, both of them gazing upward at the wheeling lights, is to see how a whole way of living is kept alive, not by words shouted or lessons drilled, but simply by standing quietly together beneath the same patient sky. And so the herd keeps its slow watch, night after night, season after season, gathered in the moonlit clearings with their faces turned upward, reading the vast and unhurried story written in the dark. There is something deeply restful in the thought of them, these grave and starlit watchers who are never in a hurry, who measure time in the drifting of planets rather than the ticking of clocks, who have learned that most things need only to be waited for. The forest holds them softly, the great trees standing guard, the moss lying deep and cool beneath their hooves, the owls calling far away, and above it all the endless patient stars wheel on and on, exactly as they always have and always will. Let that stillness settle over you now, the deep quiet of the night forest, where the centaurs keep their watch, the cool air, the soft dark, the slow and certain turning of the heavens overhead. There is nothing to do and nowhere to go. Only the long, unhurried night, only the patient stars, only the gentle sway of the great trees as the herd stands calm beneath them. Let your breathing slow to match that ancient patience, in and out, unhurried and deep, and let the starlight drift down over you like the softest of blankets, easing you gently, quietly, all the way down towards sleep, far below the surface of the great black lake that lies beside the castle. Down where the water turns from black to a deep and shadowed green, and the light of the world above dwindles to a soft and wavering glow, there lies a village of stone, and in it live the mer people, and tonight we will sink slowly and gently down to visit them. Drifting through the cool water, without effort or fear, cradled by the quiet weight of the lake. It is very still down there, and very calm, the way that deep water always is, the surface storms and the daylight left far behind, the whole restless world muffled and softened into a slow green hush. Down and down we go, past the reaching weeds and the pale drifting shapes of fish, past the sloping banks and the sunken stones, until the water grows colder and greener, and the little houses of the merpeople rise gently out of the gloom. The merpeople are not the fair and gleaming creatures of the old songs and the pretty pictures, and it is worth knowing this, for it makes them realer and, in the end, dearer. Beneath the water their skin is grayish, the color of the deep, and their eyes are yellow and wide, well suited to seeing in the dim green light, and their hair is long and dark and wild, drifting loose about their faces in the slow currents like weed swaying in a tide. Their tails are strong and silver-scaled, powerful enough to drive them swiftly through the cold, and they carry spears of rough make, for they are a proud and watchful people who guard their own. To eyes used to the pretty legends, they might seem strange at first, even a little fierce, but there is nothing wicked in them, only the wildness of a people who have made their home in a place where warm and gentle creatures were never meant to go, and who have grown, over long ages, exactly as beautiful as that place required them to be. They have built themselves a true village down in the green depths, a cluster of rough stone dwellings gathered close together, some plain and some carved with strange and lovely markings, with little gardens of waterweed tended between them and the great open square where the whole community gathers. There are merpeople, young and old there, small ones darting between the houses and elders, drifting slowly at their doors. And there are creatures kept among them, as we above might keep sheep or cattle, herds of the water tended and guarded in the murk. It is a whole living world down there, going quietly about its days far from the eyes of the wizards on the shore, ruled by its own customs and its own long memory, an entire nation folded into the cold heart of the lake. Their chieftainess is one named Mercus, fierce and dignified, who speaks for her people and keeps the peace of the village and guards the boundaries of their green country. Under her, watch the merpeople keep to themselves, wanting only to be left in their depths, and they do not trouble the world above unless the world above comes down to trouble them. There is a wisdom in that, a deep and settled contentment with their own quiet place. And to picture Mercus drifting calm and unafraid before her stone dwellings, her people gathered peaceful around her in the green light, is to picture a kind of order that has held steady for longer than anyone above can remember. The merpeople make music, and their music is a strange and lovely thing. Above the water, out in the ordinary air, it sounds harsh and shrill, a screeching that seems to hold no beauty at all, and those who have heard it break the surface have wondered how a people could love such a sound. But down below, in the world for which it was made, the same music turns sweet and haunting and full of longing, threading through the cold water in a way that carries far and stirs something deep in the listener. It is a reminder that a thing can seem one way in a place it does not belong, and quite another in its true home, and that to judge the song of the deep from up in the dry air is to miss almost everything that matters about it. Once, during the second of the 3 great tasks of the tournament that was held at the school, the merpeople and their village came briefly into the story of the wizards above. For that task, something precious was hidden down in the merpeople's square, deep in the cold green water, and the young champions had to find a way to breathe beneath the surface and swim down into the lake to bring it back. Down they came into the merpeople's world, past the weeds and the drifting fish and the wide yellow-eyed watchers, and the merpeople guarded the hidden things closely, and watched, and sang, and let the champions pass through their quiet country on their strange errand before the green water closed calm behind them once again. It was, for the merpeople, only a brief visit from the noisy world above. Soon over, soon forgotten, the lake settling back into its ancient stillness as though nothing had disturbed it at all. There is a whole rhythm to the merpeople's days down in the deep, though it is a rhythm slower and quieter than anything we know above the water. They rise, if rising is the word for it, in the pale green half-light of the shallows brightening far overhead, and they go about their tending of the water herds and their gardens of weed, drifting from house to house through the cold, clear currents, gathering in the great square when there is something to be settled, and settling again into the long stillness of the deep when there is not. The young ones learn to swim before they can do anything else, darting quick and sure between the stone dwellings, and the old ones drift slow and easy at their doors. And over all of it, the green light falls soft and even, never harsh, never sudden. A light that has been strained through fathoms of quiet water until nothing sharp is left in it at all. It is a life without hurry and without alarm, a life lived in the slow embrace of the cold green depths. And there is something in the very thought of it that eases the breath and slows the racing mind. And when the night comes to the world above, the depths grow darker still, until the merpeople's village lies in a deep and velvet blackness, broken only by the faint glimmer of the things that shine in deep water. And then the whole community settles into its long rest. The houses quiet, the currents gentle, the great lake holding its people softly through the dark. To imagine that, the sleeping village far below the still black surface, every merperson at rest in the cradling cold, is to feel how deep and how complete the peace of the depths can be. And that is how it always returns, that deep green stillness. For the lake is patient beyond measure, and its quiet is very old. Think of it now, that slow submerged world where the merpeople drift among their stone houses, the light falling soft and green from far above, the currents moving gentle and unhurried, the weeds swaying in a rhythm slower than breath. There is no hurry down there, and no sharp edges, only the cool and cradling water holding everything in its slow embrace, the little houses glimmering, the dark hair drifting, the whole village rocking ever so softly in the endless gentle motion of the deep. Let yourself sink into that green calm now, weightless and safe, held by the soft, cool water as it closes kindly around you. Let the currents rock you slowly, the way the weeds are rocked, the way the whole quiet village is rocked, back and forth, unhurried and deep. The light fades gently to the softest green. The sounds of the world above grow faint and far, and there is nothing left to hold and nothing left to do. Only the slow and cradling water carrying you down, ever so gently down, into the deep green quiet and into sleep. Down in the shallow, weedy edges of the great lake, where the water is not so very deep and the sunlight from above still filters green and dim through the drifting fronds, there live the Grindylows. And tonight, we will take only a small and gentle dip into their shadowy world, staying close to the calm and cool of it, letting the little water demons remain small and far away and no trouble to us at all. They are creatures of the weed and the murk, of the tangled places where the plants grow thick and the light grows dim, and they are not large, for all their fierceness, being only about the size of a small, strange fish crossed with something goblinish, so that even at their boldest they remain little things, easily pictured, easily held at a comfortable distance in the mind. To see a Grindylow is to see a pale green face peering out from among the weeds, a small horned head with sharp little horns and a wide mouth, the whole of it the sickly pale green of a thing that has never known the sun. Its body is slight and its skin is pale, and from it reach out long, long fingers, thin and spindly and startlingly strong, made for gripping and clutching and holding fast to whatever passes near. Those long fingers are its whole strategy and its whole strength, for a Grindylow will lie hidden in the weeds and wait, and then dart out those slender green hands to seize hold of an ankle or a wrist, clinging on with a grip far stronger than so small a creature ought to have. And yet, and here is the comfort of it, those very fingers are its great weakness too. For though they are strong, they are also brittle, thin as green twigs, and they snap easily if one only knows to seize them and break the hold. So the Grindylow, for all its clutching, is a danger with a simple answer built right into it. A small demon whose one weapon can be undone by a single firm and knowing grip. The Grindylows love the weeds, and among the weeds they make their tangled home, weaving themselves into the thick underwater thickets where the fronds grow densest, so that a swimmer who strays too near the weedy shallows may find them lurking there. They are creatures of ambush and of the murk, keeping to the shadows, disliking the open water and the light, content in the dim green tangle where they can hide and wait and reach. There is something almost fretful about them, these small clutching things, always grasping, always holding on, and one can almost feel a kind of gentleness toward them, the way one feels toward any small creature that clings so hard, because clinging is the only thing it knows how to do. Once, during the second of the great tournament tasks, when the young champions swam down into the cold lake in search of what had been hidden there, the Grindylows played their small and grasping part. As the swimmers passed through the weedy reaches, the little water demons came clutching out of the fronds, reaching with their long green fingers, seizing at ankles and legs, trying to tangle and to hold. It was a frightening moment for a swimmer far from air, all those thin, strong hands grabbing out of the murk at once. And yet the answer was the old and simple one. For a swimmer who kept a clear head could seize those brittle fingers and snap them, or drive the Grindylows back and swim on free through the green water, leaving the little demons to sink grumbling back into their weeds. Even at their most dangerous, they were only ever a small and passing trouble, quickly met and quickly left behind. It helps to remember, too, just how small the whole world of the Grindylow really is, for its life is a modest and narrow thing, bounded by the weedy shallows it never willingly leaves. It does not roam the deep open water where the merpeople keep their village, nor does it climb toward the light and the air, but keeps instead to the dim tangled margins, the fringes of the lake where the plants grow thick and the mud lies soft. There it passes its days among the swaying fronds, hiding, waiting, reaching, a small green shadow in a small green world, wanting nothing more than the murk and the weed and whatever careless swimmer might drift too near. When one pictures it so, tucked away in its narrow, weedy corner of one lake in all the wide world, the Grindylow shrinks even further in the mind, until it seems less a demon than a small, odd, fretful thing minding its own small, odd business in the shadows, easily left behind, easily forgotten. And though a whole cluster of them clutching at once out of the weeds might sound alarming, it is worth remembering that each one on its own is a slight and brittle creature, and that a swimmer who stays calm and keeps clear of the thickest weed need never meet them at all. They cannot pursue, not really, for the open water is not their home, and they will not follow far from their tangle. They can only reach from where they hide, and a reach is easily stepped past. So the danger, such as it is, stays penned in its little weedy corner, and the rest of the lake lies open and cool and free. A wide, dark, peaceful country where nothing clutches and nothing waits, only the slow, cool water stretching away calm and empty and safe in every single quiet and untroubled direction. The young witches and wizards of the school learned about Grindylows in their lessons on the dark creatures of the world, in a gentle class led by a kind and careful teacher named Lupin, who believed that the way to master a frightening thing was first to understand it. He showed his students a Grindylow up close, safe behind glass, and let them study its pale green skin and its little horns, and above all those long, brittle fingers, teaching them exactly where its strength lay and exactly where its weakness lay, so that the creature that might once have seemed a nameless terror in the dark water became instead a small and knowable thing, a puzzle with a plain solution, no longer frightening once it was understood. And that is perhaps the truest lesson of the Grindylow, that a fear looked at closely and calmly, turned over and understood, so often shrinks down into something small enough to hold in the palm of one hand. So let the Grindylows stay just there, small and pale and far away in their weedy shallows, clutching at nothing, snapping at shadows, no trouble to you at all. Picture the water around you not as their tangled murk, but as something soft and cool and clear. The deep calm water of a place where nothing reaches and nothing clings, where you may float weightless and untroubled in the quiet dark. The little demons keep to their weeds far off at the edges, and here where you are the water is smooth and still and kind, holding you gently, cooling you softly, rocking you with the slow and easy motion of the deep. Let that coolness settle over you now, the dark and gentle water all around, calm and quiet and safe. The weedy shallows and their small clutching things drift further and further away until they are only a faint green blur at the very edge of thought. And here in the deep calm, there is nothing to grasp you and nothing to hold you back. Only the soft, cool water carrying you slowly and kindly down. Let your breathing slow. Let your body grow heavy and easy. And let the dark, cool water bear you gently, gently all the way down into rest and into sleep. Far away in the high, wild mountains, in country so remote and so harsh that few wizards have ever set eyes upon it, there dwell the last of the giants, and tonight we will make our slow and gentle way toward them, and toward one giant in particular whose story is, beneath all his great size and strength, a very tender tale of loneliness and family and patience. The giants are enormous, beyond easy imagining, taller than the tallest trees, their heads brushing the low gray clouds, their footsteps shaking the stony ground, their hands large enough to close around a full-grown person as easily as you might close yours around a small stone. They are creatures of great and simple strength, plain in their ways and rough in their living. And there was a time, long ago, when they were many, and their wild world stretched far and free across the lands, before ever the wizards came to press against its edges. But that time is long gone now, and the giants have dwindled and dwindled until only a scattered few remain, driven from the softer lands into the barren mountains, crowded together in a shrinking country of cold stone and thin air. Their ways are brutal, and their tempers are short, for life among them is hard and space is scarce, and they quarrel and struggle for the little that is left. They live gathered around their leader, whom they call the Gurg, the greatest and strongest among them, and the Gurg they honor and heap with what small treasures they have, for strength is the one law they truly understand. Once their Gurg was one named Carcass, and around such leaders the last of the giants cluster in the high cold places, a fading people, growing fewer with each passing age, drifting slowly and sadly toward the edge of vanishing altogether. Because there are so few of them left, and because their strength is so very great, both sides in the great wizarding war once sought to win the giants over, sending messengers up into the mountains to court them, to woo them with gifts and promises, hoping to turn all that ancient might toward one cause or the other. It was a grim and difficult courtship, for the giants trust no one easily and have long and bitter memories of how the wizards drove their people to the mountain edges. And the messengers who climbed into that harsh country found a proud and wary and dwindling folk, hard to win and quick to anger. Yet even in this there is something to pity rather than to fear, for the giants were only ever a people who had lost almost everything, courted at last not for themselves, but for their strength, wanted by others who had never wanted them before. And it is here, in the midst of this fading people, that we come to the one giant whose story softens the whole. His name is Grop, and he is the half-brother of a great kind man named Hagrid, who keeps the grounds and the creatures of the castle far to the south. Grop is small as giants go, though still far larger than any person, and he was alone in the mountains among his own harsh kind, jostled and knocked about by the larger giants, friendless and rough and lost. And so Hagrid, out of love and out of a deep unwillingness to leave his own brother alone in that cold and brutal place, did an extraordinary and difficult thing. He brought Grop all the long way down from the mountains and hid him deep in the forbidden forest, in a great clearing among the oldest trees. And there he set himself, with endless patience, to caring for him. It was not easy, the caring for Grop, and there was nothing quick about it. Grop was wild and simple and did not understand gentleness, and he was so very large and so very strong that even his smallest movements could do harm without his meaning any. But Hagrid came to him day after day, bringing him food, sitting with him, speaking to him slowly and kindly, teaching him small words, one at a time, patient as the seasons turning. He taught Grop his own name, and taught him a handful of simple words, and little by little, so slowly that it could barely be seen from one day to the next, the wild giant began to soften, began to know his brother, began to grow calmer and gentler under all that steady, unwearying care. It was the patience of true love, the kind that expects no quick reward and asks for nothing in return, only keeping on and on gently, until the wildness eases and something like trust begins to grow. It is worth lingering a little on that clearing deep in the forest, for it became, over the slow turning of the seasons, a place of quiet and of care rather than of wildness. At first, Grop was restless there, uprooting young trees and grumbling and knocking about in his unhappiness, for he did not understand where he was or why he had been brought so far from the only country he had ever known. But Hagrid kept coming, in fair weather and in foul, bringing whatever food he could carry, sitting with his brother in the great green hush, saying the same small words over and over with endless gentleness, and slowly, so slowly that only the seasons could measure it, the clearing grew calmer. The giant began to wait for the visits, to know the sound of his brother approaching through the trees, to settle when he came, and the wild uprooting eased into something quieter, a great creature learning, for perhaps the first time in his hard life, what it was to be looked after. And there is a particular tenderness in the smallness of the words that did this work, for it was not grand magic or great force that gentled Grop, but only the plainest scraps of language, a name, a greeting, a few simple things said kindly and often. Hagrid asked nothing large of him, expected no swift change, only kept on, patient as the rain, trusting that steady gentleness would in time do what nothing else could. And in time it did, for the giant who had been so wild and so alone grew calmer and easier under that unwearying care, until the clearing that had once shaken with his restlessness lay quiet in the green light, and the last of a fierce and dwindling people had found, against all likelihood, a little peace. And there is something deeply soothing in that picture, the great rough giant in his forest clearing, and the kind man coming faithfully to sit with him, and speak to him softly, day after day after day. It is a story about how even the largest and wildest and most lost of creatures can be reached by simple, steady kindness, about how loneliness can be answered by family, about how patience, plain, unglamorous patience, can slowly gentle what force never could. Grop, who had been alone and unwanted among the harsh giants of the cold mountains, was alone no longer, for someone had chosen him and stayed with him and kept coming back. So let that gentleness settle over you now, the quiet of the great forest clearing at the close of the day, the last of the light going soft and golden among the ancient trees, the enormous calm shape of the giant sitting peaceful and no longer alone. Everything is still there, and everything is safe. The long day of patient care drawing gently to its end, the trees standing quiet all around, the cool evening air settling soft over the moss. Let your breathing slow and deepen in that great peaceful hush. Let your body grow heavy and easy and warm, and let the quiet of the darkening forest gather you up as kindly as a brother, carrying you slowly, gently, all the way down into rest and into sleep. Tonight we come to the werewolves and to the turning of the moon, and this is a gentle and a tender tale, for it is really a story about ordinary people who carry a heavy and secret burden, and about how they can be loved through it and despite it. A werewolf, you see, is not some wholly other beast that has always been a beast. A werewolf is a person, an ordinary witch or wizard, who for most of every month lives just as anyone else lives, working and resting and hoping and caring, no different at all from the neighbor beside them. It is only when the full moon rises, round and bright and cold in the night sky, that the change comes upon them, whether they wish it or not, turning them for those few hours into something else, and then, when the moon wanes and the morning comes, letting them return once more to themselves. The change itself is a hard thing, and there is no use pretending otherwise, though we will speak of it softly. When the full moon climbs the sky, the transformation takes hold, and the human body reshapes into the form of a great wolf, and it is a painful passage, aching and difficult, the bones and the shape of a person giving way to the shape of the beast. And harder still than the pain is the loss that comes with it, for while they are transformed, the human mind slips away, and the gentle, thoughtful person who was there before is gone for those hours, replaced by the wolf that does not know its own friends. This is the true sorrow of the affliction, not the pain of the changing, but the losing of oneself, the being made, for a night, into something that cannot remember who it loves. Yet even for this there came, in time, a mercy, and its name is the Wolfsbane Potion, a difficult and delicate brew that does a wonderful thing. It cannot stop the change, and it cannot spare the body its aches, but it can keep the mind. A werewolf who drinks the Wolfsbane Potion in the days before the full moon will still transform when the moon rises, but will keep their own human thoughts inside the wolf's shape, and so may pass the night curled up quiet and harmless, a gentle creature waiting calmly for the morning, rather than a danger to any living thing. It is a great kindness, that potion, a way of holding on to oneself through the long night of the change, and to think of it is to think of how cleverness and care can soften even the oldest and heaviest of burdens. The gentlest of all the werewolves in this story is a man named Remus Lupin, who carried his affliction his whole life long with a quiet and uncommon grace. He had been bitten when he was only a small child, and so the full moon had shadowed all his years, closing many doors to him and forcing him to hide his secret and move often and expect little from the world. And yet, he grew into one of the kindest and wisest of people, a patient and gifted teacher, gentle with the frightened and generous with the struggling. bearing his hard burden without bitterness and without complaint. He knew what it was to be feared for something he had never chosen, to be shunned and mistrusted. And perhaps it was this very knowing that made him so tender toward everyone else who was afraid. And Remus was not left to face the moon alone, for he had friends, and his friends did for him one of the most remarkable things that friends can do. When they were still young, still at school together, they learned of his secret, and rather than turning away from him in fear, they set themselves to a long and difficult labor so that they might keep him company through the worst of his nights. They learned, in secret, to become animagi, wizards who can turn themselves at will into animals. And so on the nights of the full moon they could change their own shapes and stay beside him. Animals among the wolf, keeping him company, easing his loneliness, so that he need not face the long dark hours entirely alone. There are few gifts greater than that. The friends who will not leave you to your hardest nights, but come and sit with you in whatever shape they must. And it made all the difference to a boy who had thought himself doomed to solitude. It is only fair to say that not every werewolf carried the affliction as Remus did, for there was a darker shadow of the same condition, a fierce and cruel one named Fenrir Greyback, who embraced the wolf and delighted in the harm he could do, and who was everything gentle Remus was not. But it is worth seeing, even in this, that the affliction itself was the same in both of them, the very same turning of the very same moon, and that what set them so far apart was not the curse they shared, but the hearts they each brought to it, the one choosing cruelty and the other choosing, again and again, kindness. The condition did not make the man. The man made himself out of what he chose to do with the hard thing he had been given. There is something worth resting upon, too, in the way the moon itself sits at the center of this whole story. For the moon is not a cruel thing, only a distant and faithful one, turning through its slow, patient phases exactly as it always has, waxing and waning, filling and emptying, month after month and age after age. To a werewolf, the full of the moon may mark the hardest of nights, and yet the same moon, seen from a warm and quiet room, is one of the gentlest sights in all the world. A soft silver lamp hung high in the dark, casting its pale calm light over the sleeping fields and the still water and the quiet rooftops. It is the same moon for everyone, for the troubled and the peaceful alike. And there is a kind of comfort in that, in knowing that even the hard nights are lit by the very same gentle light that watches over all the sleeping world. And there is comfort, too, in how the hardest nights always end. The full moon does not linger forever, but sinks at last toward the horizon, and the sky pales, and the morning comes. And with the morning, the werewolf returns to their own human shape, weary perhaps and aching, but themselves once more, the long dark hours safely behind them. However hard the night, the dawn has always come, and the person lost for a little while has always been given back. To hold that in mind is to hold a deep and simple reassurance that difficult things pass, that the light returns, that whatever the darkness takes for a night, it gives back with the morning. And so, in the end, the story of the werewolves is not really a story about monsters at all. It is a story about difference, about carrying something heavy that you did not ask for, and about being loved anyway, fully and faithfully, by those who see past the shadow of the moon to the person underneath. It is about the friends who stayed, and the potion brewed with care, and the quiet grace of a good man who never let his burden turn him bitter. There is a deep comfort in that, in knowing that even the hardest and loneliest of afflictions can be met with kindness, and softened, and shared, and that no one need be left to face their darkest nights alone. So let the moon rise gently now in your mind, round and silver and calm, not a thing to fear, but only a soft light hanging quiet in a peaceful sky. All is well, and all is safe, and the long night is held in kindness. Let the silver light fall softly over you. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Let your body grow warm and heavy and easy where you lie. There is nothing to face and nothing to carry. Only the gentle moonlight and the quiet dark and the deep sure knowledge that you are held and safe. And you may let it all go now. Softly, gently, drifting all the way down into rest and into sleep. Deep in the oldest part of the forest, where the trees grow close and the light comes down in soft green ribbons, there live creatures so pure and so shy that most witches and wizards will pass a whole lifetime without ever seeing one. These are the unicorns, the loveliest of all the magical beasts, and tonight we will move toward them slowly, the way one must always move toward something gentle, with a quiet step and an open and unhurried heart. There is no need to hurry. The forest is patient, and so are they. A grown unicorn is a horse, and yet it is not a horse at all, for it is made of a whiter white than any ordinary creature ever wears. Its coat is a pure and gleaming silver white, so bright that in the deep shade of the trees it seems to carry a little of its own light. A single long horn rises from its brow, spiraled and fine, and from its mane and tail hang strands that catch and hold whatever glimmer the night has to offer. When a unicorn stands still in a moonlit clearing, it is one of the quietest and most beautiful sights the wizarding world has to give. And those few who have seen it tend to speak of it, in later years, in the hushed voice people save for things they half believe they dreamed. The unicorns are not born white. A newborn foal comes into the world a soft and living gold, pale and warm as a candle flame, and for the first years of its life it keeps that golden coat. As it grows, the gold slowly gives way to silver, until in early youth the young unicorn gleams the color of a coin held up to starlight. Only when it is fully grown does it turn at last to that pure and gleaming white. So the color of a unicorn is a kind of quiet clock, telling anyone gentle enough to be allowed near just how long that shining creature has walked the world. The gold of the very young, the silver of the growing, the white of the grown, each one lovely, each one a stage in a long and unhurried life. Unicorns are creatures of deep and careful trust, and they give that trust unevenly. They tend to shy away from the touch of grown wizards, keeping to the far clearings, slipping between the trees at the first heavy footfall. Yet, they will often allow the young and the gentle to come close, and they show, in the forest lessons at Hogwarts, a particular softness toward girls, letting them approach and even touch the shining flanks that they will not offer to others. There is something in a unicorn that reads the heart of the one drawing near, and that turns away from roughness and toward kindness the way a plant turns toward light. To earn the nearness of a unicorn is to be found gentle, and it is a quiet honor that those who receive it rarely forget. Everything about a unicorn holds power, for it is a deeply magical beast from horn to hoof. Its tail hairs are strong and fine and full of a bright, clean magic, prized as a wand core, known for its steady faithfulness and its refusal to turn to the dark. The horn and the blood carry healing of the rarest kind, able to hold back sickness and mend what seemed beyond mending, and yet the blood of a unicorn carries within it a terrible shadow, for this purest of creatures may not be harmed without a cost. To slay something so innocent and to drink its silver blood is to buy your own survival at the price of a half-life, a cursed and shadowed existence, kept alive only by having taken a life that was blameless. The unicorn, so gentle, so shining, guards a hard and ancient truth. that some things are too pure to be spent without ruin. It was in the forest, in his very first year at the school, that a young Harry first came upon this truth, though he did not yet understand all of it. Sent into the trees at night as a punishment, walking with a lamp among the dark trunks, he found the ground marked with something that shone like spilled starlight, a bright and silver trail winding away between the roots. Following it, he came at last upon a fallen unicorn lying still and gleaming in a clearing, its beauty terribly quiet, and a hooded shape bent low over it, drinking the silver blood that could keep a failing life clinging on. It was a dark and frightening scene, and yet we may hold it now at a soft distance, the way one holds an old story read long ago, remembering only that the fallen creature was mourned, that the centaurs watched over the wood, and that help came, as help so often does, out of the shadows at the last moment. The fear of that night has long since faded. What remains is the memory of the shining thing in the clearing, and the sorrow that any harm could ever come to it. Yet the unicorns are far more often healers than victims, and their gifts run steadily through the gentle work of the wizarding world. Their hairs bind wounds and steady wands. Powdered horn goes into the careful potions that soothe and cure. A unicorn crossing a witch's or wizard's path is counted, by the old lore, a sign of good fortune and of blessing. A bright omen in a world that has more than its share of dark ones. And in the herds that move through the deepest forest, foal following mare, gold walking beside silver, walking beside white, there is a picture of the wizarding world at its most hopeful. A small living proof that beauty and gentleness go on quietly renewing themselves, season after season, far from the noise and the trouble of the wider world. There is a quiet order to the way unicorns live, too, that soothes the mind to think upon. They keep to themselves in the deepest parts of the wood, far from the paths where wizards are likely to wander, moving through the trees in small and gentle herds. The mares watch tenderly over their golden foals, keeping them close in the safe green shadow, and the young ones learn by following, as young things always do, growing slowly from gold toward silver in the long, unhurried seasons of the forest. There is no rush in any of it. A unicorn may live a very long life, quietly, gleaming faintly in the dark, and the herd goes on renewing itself gently from one generation to the next, gold following silver following white, a soft and shining chain unbroken through the years. And though they shy from the rough and the loud, the unicorns are woven kindly into the wider magic of the world through all the good their gifts can do. The tail hair that steadies a faithful wand, the powdered horn that goes into the gentlest of healing draughts, the strand of mane that can bind a wound, all of these are freely shed and gathered, taken without hurt. In this, the unicorn is a healer far more than anything else, a quiet source of mending and of hope, its brightness passing on into wands and potions and cures long after the creature itself has stepped back into the trees. So let us leave them there, in the moonlit heart of the forest, where they belong. Picture the clearing, wide and still, ringed by ancient trees, and the moon laying down its pale light across the soft grass. Picture the herd stepping out from between the trunks without a sound, their coats glowing faintly, the little golden foals close by their mothers, the grown unicorns white as new snow. There is no fear here, and nothing to trouble anyone. There is only the hush of the wood, the gentle breathing of the herd, gleaming creatures grazing and dozing in the safe deep of the night. They ask nothing of you. They only shine, quietly, while the forest keeps its watch around them. And as they lower their bright heads to rest, and the moonlight softens over their silver flanks, let your own thoughts grow just as soft and just as slow. Let the shining herd blur gently at the edges, the way sleep blurs everything kindly at last. There is nowhere to go and nothing to do. The unicorns are safe in their clearing, and you are safe and warm where you lie, and the same quiet night holds you both. Let it hold you now. Let your breathing slow like theirs, let the light dim, and let yourself drift, gently and without effort, down toward the deep and peaceful place where sleep is waiting. From the shining stillness of the unicorns we come now to a creature of a very different kind, small and dark and endlessly busy, and quite possibly the most charming little thief in all the wizarding world. Let us make a gentle, smiling space for the Niffler, for after so many great and solemn beasts, it is a soft delight to sit for a while with something so small, so soft, and so wonderfully foolish about anything that glitters. There is nothing here to fear at all, only warmth and a quiet kind of laughter, the sort that loosens the shoulders and helps the eyes grow heavy. A Niffler is a little creature of black, fluffy fur, roughly the size of a small and rounded pet, with a long, flat snout something like a duck's bill and short digging paws made for burrowing. It looks, at rest, like a soft, dark ball of fluff, the kind of thing one longs to cup in both hands. But a Niffler is very rarely at rest, for it is driven, from nose to tail, by a single overwhelming passion, a helpless and consuming love of anything that shines. Gold, silver, coins, rings, buttons, buckles, the bright clasp of a purse, a glinting brooch, a stray sickle rolled beneath a chair. All of it calls to the Niffler with a pull it simply cannot resist. Where there is a gleam, there the Niffler must go, and go it does, with a single-minded eagerness that is one of the most endearing things in the whole menagerie of magical beasts. The gift of the Niffler is not only its love of treasure, but the marvelous pouch it carries for the hoarding of it. Its belly holds a pocket of magic far larger on the inside than any small creature has a right to, and into this the Niffler tucks all its glittering plunder, coin upon ring upon chain, gathering a fortune many times its own size, and carrying it snug against itself as it trundles along. Turn a Niffler upside down and give it a gentle shake, and out will tumble a bright cascade of everything it has quietly pocketed, a small waterfall of stolen shine, far more than seemed possible from so soft and round a body. It is a wonder to behold, and it is very hard indeed to be cross with a creature that greets a scolding with such a hopeful, innocent, gleaming-eyed little face. Because they can smell out shining metal wherever it lies buried, Nifflers have long been put to gentle work by those who keep them. They will burrow eagerly down into the earth after any hidden gold, digging with those quick little paws, and so they serve as living finders of lost and buried treasure, sniffing out coins beneath the soil and hoards beneath old stones. At Hogwarts, in the care of magical creatures lessons, the students were once set loose in a search with Nifflers of their own, each little beast racing across the grass to root up the leprechaun gold that had been buried for them to find. The one that gathered the most winning the small kindness of a prize. It was one of the happiest of those forest edge lessons, all scrabbling paws and tumbling coins and laughter, the sort of afternoon that stays warm in the memory long after the cold ones have faded. Yet a Niffler must be watched, and watched closely, for its love of shine makes it a merry menace indoors. Set one loose in a room full of glittering things, and it will strip the place bare in moments, emptying jewelry boxes, prizing loose bright fittings, upending anything that promises a gleam, all with the cheerful conviction that it is doing exactly what it was made to do. It bears no ill will. It is not greedy in any unkind way. It simply cannot help itself. For the shining things call, and the Niffler answers, and the wreckage it leaves behind is only the honest work of a creature following its heart. To keep a Niffler is to accept a small and constant whirlwind of adorable robbery, and to love it anyway, which is not hard, for it is impossible to stay annoyed for long at something so soft and so sincerely delighted by a button. The most famous Niffler of all belonged to the gentle and much-traveled magizoologist Newt Scamander, who kept a whole ark of wondrous beasts in a battered leather case that opened into worlds. His Niffler was forever escaping, forever tumbling after some new glitter, and its adventures through a great glittering city were a long and joyful chase. The little creature scampering into a jeweler's window here, diving into a fountain of coins there, stuffing its bottomless pouch with everything that sparkled while its patient keeper hurried after, scooping it up, turning it over, shaking out the shining loot, and setting off again. It was mischief without malice, trouble without any darkness in it at all, and it left everyone who met it smiling in spite of themselves. Even in a world of dragons and dark things, there was room for one small soft thief who wanted nothing more from life than another gleaming coin to call its own. It is worth pausing, too, on the small marvel of that bottomless pouch, for it is one of the gentlest wonders in the whole menagerie. Inside so soft and round a little body there lies a pocket of space that has no business fitting where it fits, a warm, dark hollow that goes on, holding coin after coin and ring after ring without ever seeming to fill. A Niffler may carry, tucked snug against itself, a small fortune many times its own weight, and trundle along quite happily beneath the load. Its little paws padding over the earth, its long snout swaying, its treasure jingling faintly deep inside. There is something wonderfully cozy in the thought of it, all that gleaming plunder gathered close and kept warm, hidden away in a soft and secret place, safe from every eye. It is the very picture of a creature that has tucked everything it loves somewhere warm and near and gone contentedly on its way. And Nifflers are, for all their thieving, the most forgivable of creatures, because there is not a scrap of malice anywhere in them. A Niffler does not steal to hurt or to hoard against others. It steals the way a river runs downhill, without any thought at all, simply because that is the shape of what it is. Catch one in the act, turn it over, shake out its glittering haul, and it will only blink up at you with those bright, innocent eyes, entirely unashamed, entirely ready to begin again the moment you look away. There is something deeply soothing in a creature so simple and so content. The Niffler does not brood. It does not fear. It does not carry old sorrows or wait anxiously for tomorrow. It wants only the next bright thing, and when it has that bright thing, and a warm burrow to curl up in, and its soft pouch full and heavy, it is perfectly and completely happy, dozing at last in a nest of borrowed treasure with its long snout tucked into its fur. There is a kind of wisdom in such simplicity, a lesson in it that asks nothing of us, only that we notice how little a warm and satisfied heart truly needs, and how good it feels to want nothing more than to rest. So let us picture the Niffler now, its day of merry mischief done. Picture the little dark creature at last grown still, curled into a soft round ball deep in its snug and hidden burrow, its stolen shine gleaming faintly around it in the dark. A coin here, a ring there, all of it warm from being carried close. Its small sides rise and fall with slow and easy breathing. Its bright and greedy little eyes have finally closed. Everything it loves is near, and nothing troubles it, and the earth holds it soft and warm on every side. And as the little thief drifts off among its treasures, let yourself drift too, gently and without any effort at all. There is nothing left to chase and nothing left to gather. The day is done, and everything bright has been safely tucked away. Let your own thoughts settle like coins sinking softly into a deep and comfortable pouch, one by one, each a little heavier, each a little slower, until there is only warmth and dark, and the quiet weight of rest. Curl in as the Niffler has curled in, and let the good soft night carry you gently down into sleep. Now we come to one of the older and darker corners of the wizarding world, and we will walk through it slowly and softly, holding it at a great and comfortable distance, the way one turns the pages of a grim old tale by a warm fire, knowing all the while that the fire is close and the night is far away. We are going to speak of the Inferi, and though they belong to the shadowy side of magic, there is nothing in them that need trouble you tonight. For what we will find, when we look at them gently and without fear, is only stillness, only quiet, only the deep and dreamless rest of things that have long since stopped. Let the fear stay outside, far from this warm and safe room, and let only the calm come in. An Inferius, in the old lore, is a body that has been reanimated by dark magic, made to move again long after its life is gone, and set to do the bidding of the wizard who raised it. The word itself comes from an old root meaning the ones below, the ones of the underworld, and it suits them, for they are creatures of the deep and the buried and the drowned. They are pale, their skin gone the color of long shadow, their eyes clouded and empty, their touch cold as riverstone in winter. They have no thought of their own and no will of their own, no memory, no feeling, no cunning. They are only the shape a person once wore, moved now by a borrowed and unnatural command, walking without knowing that they walk. There is no cleverness in them to fear, and no cruelty in them to dread. They are, in the plainest and most reassuring truth, simply empty. Because they belong to cold and dark places, the Inferi are creatures of the black underground water and the sunless deep. They gather in caves and in still lakes where no light reaches, and they lie there, unmoving, for as long as the magic that holds them wishes them to lie, patient in the way that only the truly lifeless can be patient. And because they are things of cold and dark, they have one great and simple weakness, one that turns their whole grim story soft, for the Inferi cannot abide warmth and light. Fire drives them back. A blaze of flame will send the whole pale host of them shrinking away into the shadows from which they came, retreating from the heat and the brightness as the night retreats from the dawn. Light and warmth, the very things that fill a safe and cozy room at bedtime, are the very things the Inferi cannot bear. There is a great comfort hidden in that thought, if one turns it over gently. The most famous gathering of the Inferi lay far away, in a hidden cave beside a cold sea, in one of the most secret and guarded places in all the dark old tales. There, in a deep cavern, a great, still lake of black water lay under the stone, and beneath its glassy surface waited a silent host. A whole crowd of the pale and the cold, packed close together in the dark, unmoving, undisturbed, for years upon years. They had been set there long before by a wizard who wished to guard a small and precious thing, a locket of terrible importance hidden on a lonely island at the lake's heart, and the Inferi were the drowned watchmen of that place, doing nothing, wanting nothing, only lying beneath the water until something should stir them. When at last 2 weary travelers came to that cave, seeking the hidden thing, the still water broke its long silence, and the pale host rose. They came up from the black lake slowly, dripping and cold, reaching with their chill and empty hands, drawn by the movement above them, as things of the deep are always drawn. It was, in that old telling, a fearful moment. And yet even here, at the very heart of the grim tale, the ancient weakness held true, for it was a great ring of enchanted fire that saved the travelers, a bright and roaring blaze conjured up against the dark, and before that living wall of flame, the whole cold host fell back, shrinking and slipping down again into their black water, unable to cross the light. The warm and the bright won, as, in the end, they so often do. And the two who had gone into the dark came out again into the clean night air, and the cave sealed itself once more behind them, and the still water grew calm. It is worth resting a moment longer on that old weakness of theirs, for it is the true heart of their story and its deepest comfort. The inferi belong wholly to the cold and the dark, and everything warm and bright is against their nature. A single torch held steady, a ring of conjured flame, even the plain clean light of day, all of these send the pale host shrinking back, unable to bear what any living thing loves best. Warmth is life, and light is life, and the reanimated dead can lay no claim to either. So the very things that make a room safe and snug at the close of the day, the glow of a lamp, the heat of a hearth, are the very things that no inferius could ever come near. To be warm and in the light is, in the oldest sense, to be entirely beyond their reach, and there is no safer place in all the world than a warm bed in a lit and gentle room. Consider, too, how little there is in an inferius to truly fear once the first shudder passes. It has no plan and no purpose of its own. It cannot think or scheme or feel. It is only a shape set moving by another's will, blundering slow and blind through the dark, easily turned back, undone by nothing more than a flame. It is far less a monster than a kind of grim old puppet, and like all puppets it falls quite still the moment the strings are let go, a thing to be pitied, and then quietly set aside. Let us hold the whole of it now at the softest possible distance, the way we hold any old story that ends with the fire winning. For the true and quiet comfort of the inferi when all the shudder is stripped away is this simple thing, that the dead are only still. Whatever dark magic may briefly move an empty body, the person who once lived there is long gone, at peace, past all trouble and all pain, resting in a stillness that nothing can really disturb. The moving shape is only a shape. The stillness beneath it is the real truth, and that stillness is not frightening at all. It is the deepest rest there is, the rest that comes at the end of every long day and every long life, quiet and complete and kind. So we leave that far cave sealed and dark behind us, its black lake smooth again, its pale host settled once more into the deep and unmoving quiet where they belong, harmless in their stillness, forgotten by the warm world above. The cold stays there, in the story, far away. It does not come near this room. Here there is only warmth and soft light, and the safe closed dark of the place where you rest, gathered around you like a blanket, keeping every cold thing well outside the door. Feel that warmth now, all around you. Feel how far away the cold cave is, how thin and faint and unreal it has become. No more than a page already turned and a book already closing. The fire has won. The light has won. The travelers are safe, and so are you, warm and held and perfectly protected, with nothing at all reaching toward you but sleep. Let the last of the old dark story dissolve into nothing, the way mist dissolves when the sun rises over still water, and let the good warmth of your own quiet room settle deeper into you. And now, let yourself grow still, in the gentlest and most restful way, the way the whole tired world grows still at the end of the day. Not the cold stillness of the far cave, but the soft and living stillness of a body sinking happily into sleep, breathing slow, muscles loosening, thoughts going quiet one after another like lamps turned gently down. There is nothing to guard against and nothing to fear. There is only the warm dark holding you close, and the slow tide of your own breathing, carrying you gently, easily, all the way down into deep and peaceful rest. After the cold cave and its long still shadows, let us come back up into the ordinary green world, into gardens and hedgerows and cluttered classrooms and the odd bright corners of a traveler's enchanted case. And let us wander for a while among the smaller wonders. For the wizarding world is not made only of dragons and dark things. It is filled in every hedge and cupboard and quiet meadow, with little creatures too small and too harmless to frighten anyone, dear and strange and often rather silly. And there is no better company for the drowsy edge of the night than these gentle oddities. We will not hurry among them. We will only drift, pausing beside one and then another, the way one drifts through a warm and cluttered room half asleep, letting each small thing be seen for a moment, and then softly let go. Let us begin with the Cornish pixies, electric blue and no bigger than a hand, with shrill little voices and a boundless love of mischief. They dart and dive through the air on tiny wings, tugging at hair, tipping over inkpots, whisking small things off shelves, and generally causing a merry chaos wherever they are let loose, as one unlucky classroom once discovered when a whole cageful of them was opened at once. They are far too small to do any real harm, and their trouble is the harmless kind. All noise and flutter and blue commotion, the sort of thing one shakes one's head at, and then, later, cannot help but smile to remember. Out in the gardens live the gnomes, small and leathery and potato-headed, burrowing into the flower beds and making a general nuisance of themselves among the vegetables. The old and gentle work of denoming a garden is a homely sort of magic, a matter of taking each grumbling little creature by the ankles, swinging it round and round until it grows too dizzy to find its way, and tossing it off over the hedge to tumble away into the next field, from which it will cheerfully wander back in a day or two to begin again. There is nothing cruel in it. The gnomes seem almost to enjoy the flying, and the garden and its gnomes go on together, season after season, in a comfortable and endless truce. Curled by many a wizarding fire is the Kneazle, a clever and cat-like creature with a spotted or flecked coat, large ears, and a lion-like tuft to its tail. A Kneazle is far cleverer than any ordinary cat, able to sense at once whether a person is trustworthy or false, loyal to those it loves and cool toward those it does not. The great ginger creature that kept company with a certain bushy-haired witch, half cat and half something wiser, with a squashed and grumpy face and a knowing look in his eye, carried a good deal of Kneazle in his blood, and showed it in his uncanny knack for seeing straight through anyone who was not quite what they seemed. Among the branches of the wandwood trees live the bowtruckles, tiny guardians made of bark and green, twig-limbed and leaf-fingered, so like the trees they tend that a whole family of them can sit unseen upon a single branch. They are peaceable and shy, feeding on woodless and keeping watch over the trees whose wood makes the finest wands, and they will only turn fierce if their tree is threatened. The gentle magizoologist Newt Scamander kept a small green bowtruckle called Picket tucked in his breast pocket, a clinging, sulky, endearing little creature who did not much like to be parted from him, and who rode along on all his travels close against his heart. And in that same battered case of his lived a whole soft menagerie of the odd and the harmless. There were the flobberworms, brown and toothless and thoroughly dull, doing little all day but eat lettuce and lie about, so peaceable that the only danger they pose is the danger of being extremely boring. There were the puffskeins, round balls of soft custard-colored fur that hum contentedly when happy and make the gentlest of pets, rolling about underfoot and loving nothing better than to be cuddled. And there was the Occamy, a plumed and serpentine-winged creature that could grow to fill a room or shrink to fit a teapot, choosing its own size to match whatever space it found itself in, curling smaller and smaller until it lay coiled and quiet in the palm of a hand. There are more, always more, a whole endless soft catalogue of the small and the strange. There are the fairies, vain little winged things prized more for their prettiness than their sense. There are the winged Cornish creatures and the tiny doxies that nest in curtains, the auguries that cry before the rain, the mooncalves that dance in the moonlight in the empty fields, the diracles that vanish in a puff of feathers when startled and reappear elsewhere, safe and blinking. Each one is a small wonder, a little thread of magic woven quietly through the ordinary world, asking nothing, harming no one, simply being, in its own odd and gentle way, exactly what it is. There are the kindly beasts of field and stable too, that go quietly about the work of the wizarding world. There are the winged horses that draw the great carriages of the flying schools, and the humble jarvies that grumble in the hedgerows, and the crups that bound about like friendly dogs, devoted to any witch or wizard who cares for them. There are the great slow bundamans that hide in the skirting boards of old houses, and the shy demiguises whose long silvery hair can turn a cloak invisible, and the mooncalves again in their moonlit fields, dancing their strange slow dances under the full and gentle moon, while no one at all is watching. Each of these has its small place, its own quiet corner, its own way of getting through the long turning of the seasons, and the world is richer and kinder for every one of them. And there are the tiniest of all, the ones a person might live beside for years without ever quite noticing, the little glimmering things that flit at the edge of sight. There are the fairy lights that gather in summer hedges, the doxies that must be gently coaxed from the curtains, the horklumps that push up like pink mushrooms in the garden and do nobody any harm at all. There are creatures no larger than a thumbnail, and creatures that curl invisible in the folds of a sleeve, a whole hidden multitude of small magical life, humming and rustling and dozing away in every quiet corner of the world. One could spend a lifetime learning them all and never reach the end, and there would be no sorrow in that. For the learning itself would be a slow and gentle pleasure, like naming the stars. There is a great comfort in these lesser creatures, greater perhaps than in all the grand and fearsome beasts we have met on the long nights before this one. For they remind us that the world of magic is not, at its heart, a place of terror. It is a place of hedgerows full of grumbling gnomes and pockets full of sulky bowtruckles, of humming puffskeins and dozing flobberworms and clever cats curled by the fire, of countless small lives going quietly about their small business in the corners where no great story ever thinks to look. It is a homely, crowded, kindly world, and it is full to the brim with soft and harmless things. So let them all wander now through the drowsy edge of your mind, one after another, without any order and without any hurry. Let the blue pixies flutter and settle. Let the gnomes tumble sleepily back over their hedge. Let the ginger kneazle curl tighter by the fire, and the little bowtruckle nestle deeper into its warm pocket, and the round puffskein hum itself softly to sleep, and the akami coil smaller and smaller until it is only a quiet ring of feathers in the dark. Each one is safe. Each one is settling. Each one is letting the day go. And you may let the day go too, now, along with all of them. There is nothing here that needs your watching, nothing that needs your worry, only a warm and crowded little world of gentle creatures, all sinking, as you are sinking, toward rest. Let your thoughts grow small and soft and harmless as a sleeping puffskein. Let them hum quietly down into silence. And let the good dark gather you up, gently and completely, and carry you off among all these small, dear wonders into a deep and peaceful sleep. And so we come, softly and without any hurry at all, to the end of our long walk through the great menagerie of the wizarding world. There is nothing left to learn tonight, and nowhere left to go. There is only this last quiet gathering, this gentle drawing together of everything we have met along the way, before we let it all wander back, one creature at a time, into the deep and kindly forest of the story where it belongs. So let us go back over it once more, slowly, the way one walks a familiar path at dusk, not to reach anything, but only for the peace of walking it, letting each remembered creature step out of the shadows to be seen one last time before the dark folds gently over it. Think back, first, to the dragons, the oldest fire of all, drowsing scaled and vast in their far mountains, the ridgeback that a great gentle keeper once cradled, the horntail of the first great task, the pale half-blind guardian of the deepest vaults. Let them settle now into their stony sleep, their fire banked low, their great sides rising and falling slow, and let them drift back into the dark. Think of the proud hippogriff, half eagle and half horse, bowing its noble head to those who honored it, spreading its wings over the wide lake in the low gold light of evening, and let it two-fold its wings and grow still. Remember the Thestrals, gentle and misunderstood, dark and patient, seen only by those who have known loss and made their peace with it, drawing the school carriages through the mist. Remember the great serpent, sleeping in the sealed chamber far beneath the castle, only an old story now, and long since laid to rest. Remember the many-eyed spiders of the deep forest, and the loyal old patriarch among them, keeping his own strange and gentle bonds in the hollow dark. Let them each grow quiet. Let them each wander back. Remember the cold hooded figures we spoke of so softly, held far away from your warm room, and how the shape of a happy memory was always shield enough against them. Remember the boggart that wore the face of fear and then melted, at a single word, into something to laugh at, and how fear itself shrinks small when it is met with a soft heart. Remember the crimson and gold phoenix, burning gently down to ash and rising whole again from it. The gentlest of all pictures of endings that are only beginnings, his healing tears, his courage-giving song. Remember the small devoted house elves, and the freeing sock, and the bitter old heart softened at last by a little kindness. Remember the goblins deep in their stone halls, keepers of gold and masters of silver, and the carts rushing down through the tunnels into the quiet dark. Remember the star-reading centaurs, watching the heavens turn above the night forest, patient and proud. Remember the merpeople in their stone village beneath the cold green water, and the small horned Grindylows tangling in the weeds, and the whole slow submerged world of the Black Lake, cool and calm and dim. Remember the last of the giants, far away in their high mountains, and the patient care that tamed one lonely soul among them with nothing more than small and steady kindness. Remember the werewolves and the turning moon, and the quiet grace with which one gentle man carried his lifelong burden, and the loyal friends who ran beside him through the dark so that he need not be alone. Remember the shining unicorns in their moonlit clearing, gold and silver and white. The loveliest of all. Remember the little Niffler curled among its stolen treasure, and the far cold cave sealed and still behind us, and the whole soft crowd of smaller wonders, the pixies and the gnomes, the clever cats and the sulky bowtruckles, the humming puffskeins and the dozing flobberworms, all settling, all quieting, all letting the long day go. How many of them there have been, across all these long, slow nights, and how gently each of them came and went. Some were vast and ancient, older than the castles and the kingdoms. their fire banked deep in the mountain dark. Some were small enough to sit in a pocket or curl in the palm of a hand. Some kept to the cold green depths of the lake, and some to the high thin air of the peaks, and some to the shadowed heart of the forest, where the light comes down in ribbons. Some were fearsome in the old tales and gentle in truth, and some were gentle through and through, asking nothing of the world but a little grass, a little shine, a warm place to sleep. And each of them, fearsome or dear, great or small, has taught us the same quiet lesson in the end, that what seems frightening is so often only misunderstood, and that even the wildest creature keeps, somewhere within it, its own soft bonds and its own need for rest. For that is the truth we have wandered toward, night after night, without ever having to reach for it. The proud hippogriff asked only to be honored. The misunderstood Thestral was only patient and kind. The boggart shrank at a laugh, and the werewolf was loved despite the moon, and the bitter old elf was healed by a single act of gentleness. Under all the strangeness and all the old fear, the whole great menagerie turned out to be, at heart, a company of living things wanting much the same simple things that you want now. At the close of your own long day, safety and warmth and the deep sweet mercy of sleep. Let them all wander back now, together, into the trees. Picture that great forest at the close of the night, vast and dark and endlessly kind. And picture every creature we have met along the way, stepping softly back in among its trunks. The dragons and the hippogriffs, the Thestrals and the phoenixes, the elves and the goblins and the centaurs, the merfolk sinking into their green depths, the unicorns fading into their silver light, the little Niffler trundling off with its shine, the pixies drifting after like blue sparks going out. One by one they slip between the trees. One by one the shadows take them, gently, the way sleep takes a tired child, and the forest closes soft and quiet behind them, holding them all safe in its deep and living dark. And now there is nothing left to hold, and nothing left to picture, and nothing left to do but rest. The whole great company is settled. The whole wide world of magic has grown soft and far. You do not need to remember a single name of all the many we have spoken. You do not need to keep any of it. Let it all go, gently, the way the forest let each creature go, and let the letting go carry you deeper still into the warm and peaceful dark. The world is small now, and close, and kind. There is only your slow breathing and the soft weight of rest settling over you, and the quiet that comes at the end of every long and gentle tale. You are safe. You are warm. Everything is put away for the night, every beast in its clearing and its burrow and its den, every story finished and closed. There is nowhere you need to be but here, and nothing you need to do but drift, softly and completely, down into sleep. Sleep long, and sleep deep, and rest well. And on another quiet night, when you are again ready for a long, slow walk among the creatures of this gentle world, the forest and all its soft and shining company will still be here, waiting patiently in the dark, ready to be wandered through once more. Until then, let go of everything, and let the kind night carry you all the way down into deep and dreamless rest. And so we come, softly, to the end of our long walk through the world of beasts. Tonight, we met the dragons and the fire in their blood, the proud hippogriff and the courtesy it asks, the Thestrals that only the grieving can see, and the basilisk sleeping far beneath the school. We wandered among the great spiders of the forest and the acromantula that a gentle giant once loved, and we spoke, softly and from a safe distance, of the cold Dementors and the boggart that wears the shape of fear until it is turned to something to smile at. We watched the phoenix rise again from its own ashes, and we lingered with the loyal house elves and their quiet, healing devotion. We went down into the deep stone vaults of the goblins, and up beneath the wheeling stars with the patient centaurs. We drifted through the green water with the merpeople and the small Grindylows, and we walked far into the mountains to sit a while with the last of the giants. We felt the turning of the moon over the werewolves, and we found the unicorns shining silver in their moonlit clearings. We smiled at the Nifflers and their love of everything that glitters, and we passed gently by the still and quiet inferi, who are only the dead and can trouble you no more. And at the last, we gathered up all the smaller wonders, the pixies and the bowtruckles and the odd bright beasts of a traveler's case, and we held the whole living menagerie together for a single quiet moment. There is nothing now that you must carry. Let each of these creatures wander back into the dark and gentle forest of the story, growing quieter and smaller as they go, until only the soft hush of the trees remains. You are safe. You are warm. Nothing in the night asks anything of you. Let your breathing slow, and let the whole wide world grow soft and far away, until there is only the warmth of your bed and the deep and easy quiet of sleep. Good night. If this slow journey through the world of beasts brought you rest, stay a while with us and come back on another night. There are many more long, gentle tales waiting quietly for the evenings ahead.